As for other aspects, if this force could produce such a huge mystical realm, its overall abilities would be at least as great as the major workshops such as the Dulin workshop. There was no need to worry about the quality. At this moment, the people who had just finished watching the broadcast on White Pigeon Square in Kanglan City and the players in the new shops all looked very curious. Blizzard Entertainment. The players in the new shop knew nothing about this name. They stared at the logo and wondered, what workshop is this Blizzard Entertainment? Is it really so powerful? Meanwhile, the players in the old shops were amazed. Hiss! Each game created by the senior Blizzard is a high-end product. They knew Blizzard was the creator of masterpieces such as Diablo 2 and StarCraft. They had been wondering what Blizzard was doing recently since nothing came out of this brand for a while, and they didn't expect it to suddenly release such a huge game. Young Master Song, we must buy World of Warcraft. Lin Xiao and Su Luo browsed the information on the official website and exclaimed repeatedly. It's not a problem of buying it or not. Song Qingfeng looked at them in disdain and said, it seems that there are two opposing sides in World of Warcraft. If we choose different sides, according to the information on the website, we will even have a hard time talking in the game. Right now, we must consider which side we should join. In Dungeon Fighter Online, the players usually fought in the dungeons and the dojos, which meant that the conflicts among players were not as fierce as those in the Legend of Mir 2. It was overall peaceful. The players could play together even if they were from different guilds. However, in World of Warcraft, the Alliance and the Horde spoke different languages since these two sides were naturally hostile to each other. If they chose the wrong side, they couldn't even form a team to do quests together. Should we consult our class president? Nalan Mingxiu had been the class president of Class A ever since they were in the Huang house. Let's ask Instructor Mu if she wants to play the game or not. If she does, we must join the same side. At this moment, in Mr. Fang's group tour group chat, Black Demon of Half City posted a question with the title as Black Demon Guild President, at Speaker of the Royal Clan Guild, which side are you guys planning to enter? How about we enter opposite sides? Tang Yuan, the Yuan Hung Pavilion Master, immediately chimed in. Are you ready to fight again? At this moment, Nalan Mingxiu was browsing the information about the two opposing sides, classes and races on the official website. In the new shop in Kanglan City, the elves were talking animatedly among themselves while browsing the official website. Elder. Elder. What race do we choose? We'll certainly choose to be elves. Elder Sewell said without hesitation, obviously very proud to be an elf. Then, she glanced at the young elves in disdain and thought, are you planning to choose other races? But, elf girl Sala pointed at the information on the official website and said, the leader of the Forsaken is also an elf. Besides, another elf said, Elder, this race, Blood Elf, isn't open yet, but they look quite like us. The Night Elf has dark skin and doesn't look good. I think we should join the Forsaken and fight with this elf leader to get familiar with this new mystical realm. Then, we can enter the advanced elf race, Blood Elf. No. No. Elder Sewell shook her head and said, the Night Elves loves nature, which fits the values of our elf clan. We shouldn't focus on the appearances, my children. There's nothing wrong with dark skin. I think it looks good, Mr. Fang chimed in while he walked past them. Humph. Humans' aesthetics. It doesn't look good at all. They glanced at Mr. Fang in disdain. Ignoring him, they continued their discussion. Obviously, the elves had a heated discussion about this topic. The people on the Nora continent were used to the humanoid races living in this world. Examples of these humanoid races were the various clans who lived in the Orc Mountains, which were far from the Morning Light Empire. It must be noted that they were not green-skinned orcs in World of Warcraft. They looked more like the beast people who had bull and wolf heads, could walk upright, and speak human languages. That was why the players in the new shop thought that the Tauren in the trailer was an orc. The orc was a special race. It was said that their gods had gifted wild beasts with intelligence and the ability to speak human languages, allowing them to evolve from being wild beasts that drank blood and ate raw flesh. After generations of evolvement, they had obtained their current appearances. On this extremely vast continent, they had their own kingdoms and their unique civilizations. However, it was a pity that there wasn't a beast person in the shop yet. Ah! Mistake! It's a big mistake. Mr. Fang's head hurt when he thought of something. When he first came to the continent, he had seen many humanoid creatures with bull heads and tiger heads. But after he came to this city, he hadn't seen any such creatures. Sir. Assassin Harrison saw the painful look on Mr. Fang's face, and he asked, "What's wrong?" Mr. Fang raised his head and said in frustration, "Do you know why we don't see any orcs in this nation?" Orcs? Harrison asked curiously, "Why did you ask this question?" The reason is simple, this nation is far from the orc kingdoms. It's natural that we rarely see any of them here. What should I do? Would he have to go and kidnap some orcs from another nation? Meanwhile, outside the gate of the Kanglan city, my goodness! This is indeed a beautiful place. Thanks for tuning into the tour in Human Nations hosted by Mr. Dirk. Now, you're looking at the prosperous Kanglan city of the famous human nation, Morning Light Empire. An orc with a head similar to that of a Shiba Inu stood before the city gate. Wearing light armor and a bright red scarf, he spread out his arms and exclaimed, "This is indeed a bustling human nation." Beside him was a stout and chubby orc with a black bull head. He was wearing leather armor, and he had a simple stone magic wand. This wand was stuck into the ground, and it supported a top-quality magic crystal. This crystal seemed to be able to capture all the visuals around it, working like a spiritual spell visual projection. They were the assassins rescued by the newly established Brotherhood from Stan Nation and other neighboring nations. Before the release of the new mystical realm, you guys can try Assassin's Creed. Harrison, Alina, and other senior members of the Brotherhood introduced them to Assassin's Creed. The new official website had introductions of various races, classes, and race leaders. In the days before World of Warcraft was released, many players were talking about this. Lingyun Academy, the main road beside the martial arts field at this moment, some disciples were taking a break on a slope beside the main road after the combat technique class. Our class president plans to choose the Horde. Fang Qi, a veteran player and Song King Feng's classmate, looked at his communication jade in surprise. No. I don't see any race I like in the Horde. Undead is a new race that I never played before. I want to try it, Nalan Mingxiu said in the group chat. They had only seen necromancers in Diablo 2, and the only impression of undead that the players in the old shops got was that they were all skeletons. However, Nalan Mingxiu found that the Forsaken race was very special and wanted to try it. I heard that the Royal Clan Guild has chosen the human race, right? Nalan Mingxiu said, yeah. They talked about it for a long time before making the decision. Shengjing Academy also chose the alliance. Okay. We must stick together. Let's join the Horde. Song Qingfeng said in the group chat, I'll play a Tauren since I've never played such a character before. Commander, what should we choose? A Knight of the Golden Griffin Knight Legion asked. Without saying, we must choose the human race and be paladins. Commander Elvin said proudly, this name sounds lofty with the word saint in it. I'm sure it's the most powerful class. TL note, Paladin is called Saint Knight in Chinese. Excellent decision, Commander. The knight yelled, I also think that knights with the word saint in the title are super powerful. In his mind, the scenario where he battled against many opponents on his own appeared. Do you know why I came to this city? At this moment, a dog-headed man walked into the shop. With his grey hair and mane meticulously combed, he wore a set of unique silver armor. The moment he entered the shop, his eyes widened. While looking around, he said in shock, I'm surprised. Can you believe that this shop looks more high-end than the lava workshop and Dulan workshop? Before I came, I asked about it and heard that this is a representative shop for the East Continent. I heard that it's going to release a new massive mystical realm that has something to do with us orcs. So, we are coming here to check it out. With that said, he walked deeper into the shop with the bull-headed man. Isn't that Mr. Dirk? Helen of the Golden Griffin Knight Legion was talking about the classes in the lounge area, and she suddenly turned her head. Mr. Dirk was a famous rogue of the Orc clan since he liked to record his travels with spiritual spell visual projection whenever he went to a new place. Of course, this was only his hobby since. No wonder Mr. Dirk hasn't done any spiritual spell visual projection for the major workshops lately, Helen said in a huff. It's because he came here. In the distant Orc kingdom, some people could afford the projection crystals which could receive spiritual spell visual projections. Many people like to watch the spiritual spell visual projections from the nearby Alchemist Union branches. Obviously, many people were watching this scene right now. While Helen glared at him in frustration, this beast man went directly toward the counter. Mr. Fang was sipping his cappuccino when he heard someone knocking on the counter. Then, he saw the head of a Shiba Inu, and he asked, "Where did this dog, pu?" Helen almost stumbled and dropped to the ground. She almost walked up and told Mr. Fang that this man was an orc. Headed man. Mr. Fang quickly reacted and added 2 more words after dog, calling this guest a dog-headed man. 2 magic crystals per hour. The activation prices for the games are on the small blackboard. While his face twitched, he thought, how come orcs look like this? Then, he blinked and discovered that there was a bull beside the dog. However, with their appearances, Fang Qi finally completed his task. New task, Cross-Aram Masterpiece World of Warcraft, completed. Task target, 1. The reputation of the new shop reaches 100,000 people, completed. 2. Players include people from other races such as elves, orcs, and dwarves, completed. Task privilege, receive the original cinematic trailer, the right to design your own trailer, and the right to host small-scale events. Task reward, upgrade and combine the TV series and movie Cultivation Room and the game Cultivation Room, 10-day access to the new Cultivation Room. Fang Qi glanced at the system version of World of Warcraft that was the reward. The system version of World of Warcraft costs 15 magic crystals or crystals for 1,350 minutes, and 30 magic crystals or crystals could buy 2,700 minutes, so on and so forth. New task, Cross-Aram Masterpiece. Following Task 1, New Chapter, Burning Crusade, it can only be released after basic requirements are met. Task target, the new shop's degree of reputation reaches 500,000 people. The degree of reputation of World of Warcraft reaches 300,000 after the task is completed, the system will upgrade automatically. Then, the host can actively seek and meet the requirements for the update of other games. After the upgrade, the shop can establish regional branch shops. The host can send employees to manage these branch shops. Task reward, the Ring of the Gaming King, special item. When being worn, plus 5% synchronization with all game characters, plus 20% cultivation strength and skills gains in the cultivation room, plus 10% compatibility with the game characters, and minus 10% consumption of complete synchronization. With higher compatibility with the game characters, the host will get used to the characters faster. Mr. Fang froze. We have such things. Obviously, this was a must-do task. Although Mr. Fang now had the right to release World of Warcraft, he decided to release it tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, the new shop had begun recruiting employees. He would need more than 1 employee. Since the business hours of the shop were increasing, 2 shifts were required even though 3 shifts weren't necessary at the moment. For the management of the shop, Mr. Fang pulled some people from the old shops. He decided to move Li Xiner to hear from Yuanyang City shop first. Since Xiaoya was coming to the new shop soon, he decided to let Li Lanruo come with her as well. Meanwhile, some people had gotten the news from Mr. Fang. Tomorrow. World of Warcraft will be released tomorrow. My goodness! We haven't decided which side to join yet. The elves exclaimed. Mr. Fang's face darkened. How many days have you been talking about it? On the next day, the number of players in the shop were obviously larger than usual, with dwarves, elves, mages, large groups of mercenaries, and new assassins all coming into the shop. In fact, there were also many new players who had come to the shop from other cities after they got the news. Mr. Dirk of the Orc clan was one of them. My goodness! Mr. Dirk came to the shop at 8 AM sharp and found that the entrance was crammed with people. So many people! The elves had come very early and waited by the door, looking as if they were about to break into the shop. What's wrong? One elf checked the time. It's only 5 minutes to 8. It's still silent inside. Sir! Get up! What are you yelling about? A figure hurried down the stairs inside the shop, looking groggy. Obviously, he had just gotten up from bed. Lazy shop owner! Upon entering the shop, elf girl Sala gave Mr. Fang a dirty look. Before she could finish, many people behind her swarmed up to the empty seats. Oh! Quickly take seats! Sala exclaimed and dashed to a nearby seat and plunked down as swiftly as a bunny. Then, she gave Mr. Fang a disapproving look and said, You get up at 8 o'clock each morning. How lazy you are! You can sleep to death if you want. It must be noted that these elves usually cultivated during the night and came out when the sky barely got bright again. In Silver Moon Forest, early morning was the perfect time for everything. Even the fruits tasted the best in the early morning. They were not like the scummy shop owner who slept until 8 AM when the sun was high up in the sky. The elves had had heated discussions over the past couple of days about which side to join. Finally, some elves decided to join the night elf race while others joined the Forsaken race led by Sylvanas. With a free nature, the elves wanted to try different things to make better decisions. Ugh! Sala saw Mr. Fang sitting down one seat away from her. Don't you need to keep an eye on the shop? Mr. Fang pointed in the direction of the counter where two girls suddenly appeared. I moved 2 employees over from the old shops. So that you can play the game. Elf girl Sala looked at him in disdain. Sitting between them, Helen glanced at Mr. Fang's screen and asked, Sir, are you going to play as well? Why not? Mr. Fang pulled his computer chair closer to the desk and double-clicked on the logo on the desktop. While the game was loading, he picked up a bottle of Sprite and took a swig. Sir, what class are you choosing? With great familiarity, Mr. Fang chose the Undead race and the Rogue class, and he created the ID Midnight Pig Butcher. Then, he entered the game and finished the process in one breath. At this moment, Mr. Fang appeared at the spawn spot, Death Knell, which was located on Azeroth. The elves sitting nearby were still deliberating over which face looked better. In the system version, the players could do some adjustments to their faces, and the undead players could even adjust the degree of decay. Some players even complained that the Forsaken had withered faces, sounding like they weren't here for the gameplay in World of Warcraft. Helen glanced at Mr. Fang and found that he appeared in the game just as a skeleton. Zhang Xiaoyu looked at their screens and then at the screen of the big white deer. Little Bell, what did you choose? I saw them all choosing the orc or tauren, so I followed suit and chose tauren too. The big white deer complained in its baby voice, there are only bull-headed people but no deer-headed people. The demon clan obviously all chose the horde. Meanwhile, ugh! Elder Sua is live streaming again. Obviously, some players came too late and couldn't find a seat. For example, the disciples traveling from the distant 3 Saint Gates. They had no choice but to watch the live stream first to get a glimpse of the game. When the players chose characters in World of Warcraft, they could only choose the facial styles and make some minor adjustments. Of course, humans and night elves obviously had 2 different aesthetic styles. Su Tianji, who was live streaming, looked torn. Ugh! Can you guys help me make the choice? Which do you think looks better? Let's get out of here. Trash Elder Su, some players have leveled up several times now, and you are still choosing your character. Idle streamer. Can't you choose the gnome? Su Tianji replied, why? You haters. I won't ask you again. Meanwhile, in the new shop in Kanglan City, the dog-headed man looked more professional. Welcome to the show hosted by Mr. Dirk. It's said that this is a mystical realm consisting of 2 continents. I wonder if we'll encounter friends from other continents in this mystical realm. This orc placed a stand supporting the magic crystal beside him and said, I haven't learned all the functions of the high-end magic item in this shop yet, but you can see on the screen that I've chosen a bull-headed orc. I think this is an orc. Hiss. I wonder why the orc race in this mystical realm doesn't include our kind. It's strange. Oh. No. No. How come the green-skinned creatures are orcs? Which clan do they come from? I don't remember any orcs in our clan looking like this, but I think we should put more focus on their talents. It seems that each race has its own unique talents. Now, let's first see. Obviously, there were many people watching this spiritual spell visual projection. They were mostly fans of cultivation mystical realms and would have discussions through the methods such as magic letters or spiritual spell visual projections. Of course, they usually used magic letters which were more affordable. Beside a windowsill covered by violet stalk flowers, a unique quill drip pen was writing neat words on a pure white letter paper by itself as if it was alive. After the written conversation was the signature of the writer. Of course, it was not the true name of the writer. What am I seeing? I'm watching Mr. Dirk enter an unknown mystical realm. From Minor Mage Andre. It's World of Warcraft, which is said to be a product of the Blizzard Workshop in the East Continent. It's not an unknown mystical realm, friend. From Sky Ocean Night Legion. I heard that this mystical realm consists of 2 huge continents and is more massive than we can imagine. But I wonder if they are just bluffing. From Wolf-Headed Man, we can't rule out this possibility. From Platinum Mage. Each race in World of Warcraft had its own unique talents which could change the battle style of different classes in some degree. For example, the shadow meld of night elves could be used instantly and enable the night elf to slip into the shadow, thus decreasing the chance of being detected by the enemies. It could last until the player cancelled it or upon moving. Shadow meld could be combined with the stealth skill of night elf rogues or druids. Finally, with the suggestions from the viewers, Su Tianji, who wanted to play the mage class, chose to be a human mage and entered the game. Despite their hesitation at the character creation interface and wasting time there, most players including elves, dwarves and orcs had all entered the game by now. The noble humans of Stormwind are a proud, tenacious race. Right now, Su Tianji was watching the cinematics at the beginning of the game for the human race. Before her was a solid fortress built with huge boulders. While the huge stone statues of different races such as humans, dwarves and elves were revealed to the players, the passionate voice narrated the past of Stormwind City. The whole fortress slowly displayed itself before the human players. Though the recent invasion of the demonic Burning Legion decimated their sister kingdom of Lord Aaron, the defenders of Stormwind stand vigilant against any who would threaten the sanctity of their lands. Stormwind City is one of the last bastions of human power in the world. The narrative voice grew more passionate with the rise of the music. Backed by their stalwart allies, the armies of Stormwind have been called away to once again fight the savage horde on distant battlefields. With the armies gone, the defense of Stormwind now falls to its proud citizens. The scene slowly turned from the Stormwind City to a beautiful human female mage in Northshire Abbey. She had just created her character. You must defend the kingdom against the foul mongrels that encroach upon it and hunt down the subversive traitors who seek to destroy it from within. Now is the time for heroes. Now humanity's greatest chapter can be told. Oh! Isn't it me? Su Tianji suddenly felt like someone was patting her on the shoulder, entrusting her with the responsibility of humanity's future. Am I so powerful? She was instantly worked up. Is it going to be similar to the legend of Sword and Fairy later on, where I can say that I control my own destiny, not the heavens? She got excited by the prospect of her great achievements on this continent. At this moment, the elves were also watching the cinematics after creating night elf characters or the Forsaken characters. While many players had entered the game, some dwarves and orcs had just begun watching the cinematics. Chapter 679 Who is the greatest race? For 10,000 years, the immortal night elves cultivated a druidic society within the shadowed recesses of Ashen Vale Forest. Yet recently, the catastrophic invasion of the Burning Legion shattered the tranquility of their ancient civilization. Led by the Archdruid Malfurion Stormrage and the priestess Tyrande Whisperwind, the mighty night elves rose to challenge the demonic onslaught. Though victorious, the night elves were forced to sacrifice their cherished immortality and watch their beloved forests burn. As one of the few left in the world, it is your sworn duty to defend Darnassus and the wild children of nature against the Legion's encroaching corruption. Elder Sewell and many other elves had chosen the night elf race, and they thought, my goodness! The night elves are indeed a great race. We made the right decision of choosing it. Sala must be regretting her choice now. Meanwhile, the orcs were watching the opening cinematics of the game through the spiritual spell visual projection. Long ago, the Orcish horde was corrupted by the Burning Legion and lured to the world of Azeroth. For generations, the orcs made war upon the human kingdoms of Stormwind and Lord Aeron. Though the horde was ultimately defeated, a visionary young Warkif named Thrall rose to lead his people in their darkest hour. Under Thrall's rule, the orcs freed themselves from the chains of demonic corruption and embraced their shamanistic heritage. Based in the warrior city of Orgrimmar, they stand ready to destroy all who would challenge their supremacy. Looking at the huge orc city in Durotar Valley, a player yelled, "My goodness! I made the right choice. This is a huge mystical realm only a big workshop can produce. This orc looks weird, but it's compatible to the beliefs of our orc clan. Now, we need to defend Lord Aeron." Mr. Dirk stuck out his tongue. "No, defend Orgrimmar. This name is so difficult to remember. What Orgrimmar? Lord Aeron. The alchemists of the East Continent always like these weird names. That's embarrassing. Orcs, we have a traitor among us." The audience from all over the world enthusiastically wrote down their comments on the magic letters. Meanwhile, Mr. Dirk stretched his body in the game. "You've finally grown up, Mr. Dirk." Village Chief Kartik walked up and sized up the new orc. "You can join the battle in the name of the Horde and fight for the glory of the Warkif." "Of course. I'll kick out all the enemies who dare to challenge us orcs." Mr. Dirk yelled without thinking and then froze. Ugh! This mystical realm is intriguing. Then, he glanced around and said, "So many people. Guys, do you see them? Are they people from the East Continent? I'll go and greet them. Of course, we might speak different languages." At this moment, there were many orc players in the Valley of Trials, and it was the same in the Death Knell. The undead had high resistance against fear, sleep, and charms. When they concentrated, they were immune to most of these spells. This was their natural gift. Regardless if they were in melee combat or ranged combat, it was deadly if the players were controlled by these spells. This gift enabled the undead to be competent for most classes. In the Juhua City shop, Nalan Minxue controlled her little undead warrior to walk around in Death Knell. "How come there are so many people here?" Her companion Lan Yan had just come out of the graveyard. While looking around at the bustling mages, warriors, and undead rogues, she said, "I feel like there are more people than in Dungeon Fighter Online. Everyone says that the undead are ugly, but there are so many people playing this race." They were dazed by the scene. After walking out of the town, they saw tall evergreen trees and shrubs everywhere. In the dense Tyrus Foul glades where no sunshine could penetrate inside, there were many zombies and skeletons as if it was a ghost town. The players were amazed that they were a part of them. It seems like we are a part of them. But I don't like the scenery here. Suddenly, they saw two undead with pointy ears passing by. The ears looked like those of an elf, but they were less pointy and shorter than those of night elves. Ugh! These people! While rubbing her eyes, Lan Yan thought that she had seen it wrong. Immediately, she walked up and asked, "Excuse me, can we choose the elf race in the undead race? How did you choose the race?" Ugh! Sala was nonplussed. "We're born as elves. We didn't choose to be elves, after all, it was a feature that they were born with." "Wait a second. Are you from the elf clan that the shop owner once mentioned?" Nalan Mingxue froze. "My goodness! What elf? We have elves here." Immediately, many players from the old shops swarmed up. "Are you people from the East Continent?" Elf girl Sala was amazed that she encountered people from a place hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. "Do you want to join us and do quests together?" Nalan Mingxue sent an invitation. "Can I?" "Of course. Join the group." "Join the group." Sia quickly joined the group and went to kill mobs cheerfully. Most elves had chosen warriors and mages. After spawning, they would watch some introductions about the undead, and they then got the quest to eliminate the brainless zombies outside Death Knell. Maybe they were once your peers or brothers, but they had fallen and are now slaves of the Lich King. Obviously, this was a process for the players to learn the history of the Forsaken. At this moment, Elder Sewell put down her virtual reality headset and glanced over. "How are you doing, little Sala? Do you want to join the Night Elves in the Alliance?" "No way," Sala was busy doing quests with her new teammates. "This Forsaken race is very powerful." "How can it be?" Elder Sewell said curiously, "I watched the cinematics. These savage members of the Horde were defeated in the previous war." "No. No. We, the Forsaken, were defeated because we were fighting both the Burning Legion and the slaves of the Lich King at the same time." Sala refuted with the little knowledge that she just learned about the history of the Forsaken. "Impossible. We, the Night Elves, defeated the Burning Legion before." "Oh. We also have to deal with something called the Scourge Army." Sala was still confused with all these legions and armies which sounded quite powerful. "They are people who escaped from the evil Lich King. They were once defeated but will rally in the future. This is a great race with a strong will." "Hiss! What's going on?" Elder Sewell was baffled as she thought, "Aren't we, the Night Elves, the greatest race?" After all, it was what the opening cinematic had said. "They themselves are monsters." Elf girl Sala said while fighting the mobs in the forest. "While dealing with these monsters, we have to be wary of all people. We're all fighting the evil Burning Legion, right? Why can't they stop bothering us? Those people just hate us because of our looks." Sala thought resentfully while searching for useful equipment with Nalan Mingxue and others in Death Knell. "Excuse me, are you really an elf?" Lan Yan had been staring at the elves with great curiosity. In the game, the Horde used one language while the Alliance used another, which meant that communication wasn't a problem for them. After all, both the Spiritual State language and Nora Continent language became the languages of the Horde and Alliance in the game. Since the characters in the game had memories of their respective languages, the players could understand each other. Of course. Soon, they each collected a bag of equipment and returned cheerfully. Even the trash equipment could be used to trade for some items from the undead guards. Of course, experience points were the most valuable thing. "Miss Sala, you really don't want to join our human army of the Alliance?" The members of the Golden Griffin Knight Legion sitting nearby obviously had the same grand feeling of being endowed with the task of saving the world as Su Tianji did. Of course, they were now playing the characters who were recruited to defend the homeland and the Alliance. Right now, Stormwind City was facing a great threat. With their army stationed overseas, their home lacked manpower, which was why the newly recruited players must defeat the enemies from the outside and remove the internal conflicts, shouldering a portion of the responsibilities. Obviously, it was a lofty cause to contribute to the kingdom's prosperity and safety. I'm proud for making the wise decision to become a human paladin. Haha. This identity gave these knights a sense of achievement and responsibility, and the Golden Griffin Knights laughed. After all, their responsibility in the real world was defending the city. With the entire city prosperous and peaceful, they were now quite idle. A Golden Griffin Knight had platinum-colored lights flashing on his hands. The warm holy light can swiftly heal any injuries. Isn't it awesome? Among all the spells, the holy light spells had the fastest healing speed. There were healing spells in other games, but their healing speeds were relatively slower. I think our opponents will feel hopeless when we're in real battles, another Golden Griffin Knight said in excitement. Right. May the holy light be with you. Helen exclaimed cheerfully, I feel like the paladins have super powerful combat techniques. Our levels are now low, but we will be unbelievably powerful when we grow stronger. Ugh! At this moment, Commander Elvin exclaimed while he stared at the quest report in his hands with widened eyes. A report of a Duskwood wolf raid on Northshire? Does the Azeroth continent have a Duskwood too? There is a brotherhood here too. Right now, the Golden Griffin Knights were doing the Northshire Abbey quest, and Helen was amazed by what she read in the report. The humans wearing red masks. They call themselves the Brotherhood. It must be a coincidence, another Golden Griffin Knight said casually, it's a coincidence of names. Northshire Abbey was a green valley with all kinds of thick ancient trees, and it was enjoyable to level up, kill mobs, practice skills, and do quests in this dense and vast forest. In this human territory, players could complete quests that would increase their reputation while touring the peaceful and tranquil human land. Perhaps they would understand why they must defend this land while they toured this beautiful place. Outside the tall city wall of the Northshire Valley, a gravel path in the forest led out to Goldshire, the biggest human town besides Stormwind City. Surrounded by tall and thick ancient elwyn woods, the peaceful Goldshire that was on the main road leading to Stormwind City was a miniature of the daily life of people living in Elwyn Forest. Adventurers from all over the world bustled in the inn named Lion's Pride. Obviously, today was the busiest day in its history. Oh, so many people! The Knights of Golden Griffin Legion had just entered the inn, and Commander Elvin called out, a glass of Lion King black beer for each of us. Ha ha ha! They sat down at a table, feeling a bit tired after doing quests for about 2 hours in Northshire Abbey. Beside them were a few members of the Royal Clan Guild such as Royal Princess Gu, the Second Prince, and some disciples of Shengjing Academy. They slammed their hands on the table and shouted, "Servant! Get us your best drinks and dishes!" The Golden Griffin Knights gaped as they looked over. Ugh! Anything wrong with what we said? The members of the Royal Clan Guild froze for a moment. Regardless of what background they came from in the real world, the players merged themselves into the game completely. Right now, they were human paladins who had just been recruited and began to learn the basic skills and combat techniques just as they had done when they first became knights. Of course, the skills of paladins looked noble and graceful. They used the platinum-colored holy light and had the holy light spell which could heal injuries swiftly and all kinds of holy seals. This feeling so cool. Looking at the bustling crowds in the Lion's Pride Inn, Elvin felt as if he had returned to his youth when he had just mastered his sword techniques and came out of his home for adventuring. Who said that one could never return to the past? Maybe in another world, people could find a totally different life. In the system version of World of Warcraft, the players didn't control the characters with a mouse and keyboard, which was why the operations were much more complicated than the original version. For example, the Paladin was a class that inflicted damages mostly through auto-attacks. In the system version, it was impossible to them to auto-attack the enemies after casting Seal of Judgment as in the original version, they had to focus on each battle themselves. Even without the aid of spells, they could attack with their own sword techniques and combat techniques. At this moment, the players had only a basic understanding of the skills that they had learned. With their current sword techniques, it was no problem for them to kill the ordinary mobs. They got themselves busy with leveling and completing quests and thus hadn't taken time to study these skills. The Seal of Righteousness can add more magic effects to our attacks, another Golden Griffin Knight said in pleasant surprise. Knights and warriors usually cultivated Qi, and their attacks could inflict magic damages only when their mages were helping them. However, in this game, even warriors can achieve these effects on their own. Soon, these players found that the power of holy light was achieved by faith. Obviously, like the freedom in Assassin's Creed, holy light in World of Warcraft didn't originate from a god. Right now, these players only had a basic understanding about it. To them, holy light was a special warm light that could heal injuries with extremely great speed, and it was totally different from any light they had seen in the real world. We can have faith in this light? How come there is such a strange belief? This setting in the game gave these players a completely new definition of faith. In Assassin's Creed, the faith was freedom. Now in World of Warcraft, the faith was the holy light? Of course, in the game, regardless if the players had faith or not, the characters such as paladins and priests had their fixed faiths, so the players who didn't believe in holy light had no problem playing their roles. Walking out of the Lion's Pride Inn, Commander Elvin came to the forest outside the town again to do the quest. I'll use the Seal of Righteousness first. It was fine to walk on the main road. But in the forest, players would encounter all kinds of dangers such as wolves, wild beasts, and rogues of Defias Brotherhood. Soon Elvin encountered a Defias rogue wearing a red mask, and he came from the Defias Brotherhood which was mentioned before. Of course, they had nothing to do with the Brotherhood in Assassin's Creed. They were a bunch of fierce and evil people, and they sneak attacked Elvin the moment he entered the forest. Elvin's combat techniques were excellent. With a slight shift of his body, he dodged the dagger and hacked with his double-handed big sword swiftly. Knowing the opponent's great speed, Elvin's strike focused on speed. Immediately, he left a long bloody wound in the rogue's body. So powerful! The strength increased by 30%. The Defias rogue rolled on the ground and fled into the depths of the forest. With his great speed, there was no way that a paladin could catch up to him. At this moment, a streak of holy light shot out and knocked the escaping rogue to the ground in the blink of an eye. Then, the rogue instantly died. Ugh! Elvin looked down at himself in puzzlement. How come I can use judgment now? Then, he read the descriptions of the skill again. Release the power of the Holy Seal onto the enemy. Holy Seal. I just used the Seal of Righteousness. Elvin thought back carefully. And then judgment. Is this what it meant by releasing the power of the Holy Seal onto the enemy? No wonder I couldn't use it. I must use a Holy Seal first? Then, a shout sounded in the internet cafe. Guys! Come and look! I mastered a core skill of Paladin. Awesome! You mastered a core skill already? At this moment, Mr. Fang, who was busy leveling up as an undead rogue, looked over in surprise. These people are so talented! They have mastered a core skill of Paladins so soon? At this stage, they shouldn't have learned the core skill Seal of Command yet, right? The elves and assassins beside Elvin looked over in astonishment. This middle-aged knight demonstrated the spell to them in excitement by casting a holy seal and then shooting a beam of dazzling golden light at a wolf. With a whimper, the wolf dropped to the ground with blood gushing out of its head. I can use this powerful combat technique perfectly! Commander Elvin yelled in excitement. My goodness! Is it judgment? The mercenaries yelled in surprise. I have a less than 30% success rate in using this combat technique. You can do it whenever you want to. I only managed to cast it once. Helen was frustrated, wondering if her talent was too poor. You have a success rate of 30%. Is this combat technique so difficult to use? The elves exclaimed. They felt like they had mastered all the skills after learning them, and they didn't know that there were such difficult skills in the game. You can even use ranged attacks. The assassins looked envious. Of course. Commander Elvin said proudly, I just understood this powerful combat technique. It needs a holy light technique before this powerful attack named Judgment can be used. Mr. Fang's face twitched, thinking, you only need to cast a holy seal as a prerequisite before using Judgment. I was foolish to believe that you guys can master deep and complex skills. With a dark expression, he returned to his game. What's a holy seal? At this moment, another mercenary asked curiously, I only have holy light. How come you guys also have the so-called holy seals and judgment? You can learn them with the class trainer, Helen said, didn't you do that? The mercenary looked at the knights in confusion. Where can I find a class trainer? In Northshire Abbey, really? There is such a place in person? I didn't know that. The mercenary yelled in surprise, my goodness! Your masters! You Golden Griffin Knight Legion is indeed marvelous. Who are they? Although Song Qingfeng had gone to play as a Tauren, Lin Xiao was over here. He chuckled while hacking down the mob before him. We have quite a few powerful knights here, Lance, the elf captain, answered casually. Don't worry, Lin Xiao said, we are powerful masters too. You guys. Elf Captain Lance looked at them in puzzlement. Although they chose to be undead, they didn't choose the appearance of a skeleton like Mr. Fang, so Lance could see that these players were young people who were about 20 years old. Rain began to fall in Tyrus Foul Glades that was engulfed in chilly and damp grey mist, making these players feel a unique loneliness and sadness. Look! What's that? A big fat figure walked up from the grey misty rain in the forest with a huge axe and a chain in its hands. Is it a monster? Seeing the creepy figure, the elves felt their hearts began to race. Be careful! Nalan Mingxiu grew cautious. When the figure got close, the players saw that it was a huge mountain-like monster as if it was sewed together by thick threads. It emitted a pungent smell of poison and plague, and its belly was cut open and empty. It was a horrifying and creepy scene. What's this? The elves had never seen such scary monsters before. The monster walked toward the players and yelled in a deep and muffled voice, we won't harm you. Can you do us a favor? Our master needs grass, but our hands are too big to pick up the grass. Ugh! The elves froze. Isn't it here to eat us? Unconsciously, they shrunk back a little, afraid to be eaten by this monster who looked extremely terrifying. They exchanged a look. I think not, you can ask others to help you, okay, the monster walked off in disappointment. After a long while, the players began to wonder, what was that thing? It looks scary, Sala said, I think it must be an evil monster trying to get close to us with some evil purposes. I think it only wanted to give us a quest, Nalan Mingxiu said in earnest. I think we must be careful. The elves looked very wary of this kind of horrifying monsters. How many quests do you guys have left? They are all done. Let's go back and hand in the results. So, we are able to go to that Undercity later, one elf asked. It seems like it. Located in the east of Tyrus Foul Glades, Undercity was the main city for the undead race and the city that all the undead players must visit. Going south from Tyrus Foul Glades, the players saw the high walls standing in the Lordaeron's ruins. The gloomy sky lent a grey and dark look to the city walls. When the elves came here with Nalan Mingxiu and other students, they saw many undead players bustling through the city gate. With many undead guards and patrolling soldiers mingling in the crowds, the place was boisterous. Undercity was a huge underground maze under the ruins of Lord Aaron Kingdom. The large stretches of collapsed buildings and thick stone pillars covered by thriving ivies looked desolate despite the bustling players walking around them. The road leading from the gate to the interior of the city was the road that Arthas took after he returned as the Death Knight and killed his father. Following the road, they could go all the way to the throne. The huge bronze bell had crashed deep into the boulder, but no one bothered to get it up. Following the road, the players seemed to hear cheers and the crisp ringing of the bell when celebrating the return of the prince. They seemed to feel the people's panic and astonishment when the prince walked over to the throne and killed his father. Once the biggest human kingdom, even thought Lord Aaron had turned into ruins. The heaviness of its history lingered in the air, and the chilly rain falling from the sky gave people a special sense of sadness even if they didn't know about the historical events. Built in the ground under Lord Aaron, Undercity could be reached through the many tunnels inside the castle. This must have been a prosperous kingdom. The elves looked around the ruins while they walked, and they exclaimed as they looked at the grand city walls built with huge boulders and the dilapidated buildings. Ugh! Isn't that Ms. Sala and her companions? Alina and other assassins had also chosen the undead race and had just arrived at this city. Following the crowd, they walked toward the entrance of Undercity. My goodness! There are more of those horrifying monsters here. 2 meat mountain-like abominations guarded the entrance. Do we have to pass this place that they're guarding? Sala yelled in fear. I don't think they want to harm us. Hurry up! Don't block the way! People behind them yelled impatiently. Meanwhile, they saw many people walking through the entrance guarded by the abominations without anything bad happening to them. Sala inhaled deeply. I'm going over. Sure. Don't be afraid. I'm really going. Sala took in another deep breath and dashed forward in a fit of boldness. Ugh! The moment that she rushed through the gate guarded by the abominations, she froze, feeling like there was nothing below her feet. Ah! The resonate scream grew fainter as it went down. What's wrong with her? The people nearby talked among themselves. The elevator hasn't come up yet, and she just jumped down. How many have jumped so far? Looking down the elevator shaft, they saw many small tombstones and an elf flat on the ground. Nalan Mingxiu and the other students exchanged a look. After death, the players had to choose to release their souls. The souls would resurrect in the nearby graveyard and had to return to find their corpses to resume the game. If the souls gave up on their corpses, they could talk to the spirit healers who looked like angels, and they could resurrect the players with the penalty of durability loss to all items and resurrection sickness. With resurrection sickness, the players couldn't do quests and level up. When elf girl Sala opened her eyes again, she found herself in a grey world with the huge shadow of a spirit healer standing by the graveyard. Having not died before while she did quests in a team, Sala was panicking when she saw this scene. Where am I? Also, she felt like her body was as light as a soul, and she was powerless. This elf was confused and lost in this strange grey world. How come your World of Warcraft looks like this now? The nearby elves put down their virtual reality headsets and looked over. I don't know, Sala looked lost. I got here after death. I feel like I've become a ghost. The Forsaken is dead already, right? How come I can die again? It seems like I must run back to my corpse or resurrect in this place with resurrection sickness, Sala said. I choose to resurrect here. Undercity looks very far from here, okay. The other elves of the elf team said, we'll get ourselves familiar with the Undercity first. There were about 10 members in the Snow Pigeon team of the elf clan. Right now, 6 of them chose a different path and joined the strange Forsaken race led by Queen Sylvanas. Including the elves outside of the Snow Pigeon team, there were about 10 elves who had chosen this race. They were not leveling up together, only 6 of them were with Nalan Mingxiu, including Sala and the other 2 female elves, Rowling and Ace. Other than the team captain, there were 2 male elves, Roger and Sloane. However, Nalan Mingxiu and her companions still couldn't tell them apart except for the mature-looking elf captain and the vivacious Sala who had just fallen into the elevator shaft. In fact, the elves were also confused with names such as Nalan Mingxiu and Lan Yan, which sounded quite strange to them. But it didn't matter. After all, they had just met today. Even if they made mistakes with people's names, it was no big deal. Instead, it might be a source of fun in the virtual reality world of the game. Should we tour around Undercity first? Lin Xiao suggested. We are thinking about it too. Captain Lance said, we're new here and must get familiar with the map. He opened the magic map in his hand. In the system version of the game, each player had a magic map which could automatically draw out the general terrain of the surrounding area and note down the positions of teammates and the places to accept quests. The Undercity in the system version was obviously bigger than the one in the original version. Even though the Forsaken wasn't a race with a large population, it still had a residential zone where many members of the Forsaken lived. Like players, many ordinary undead had woken up in Death Knell. The whole Undercity was built under Lord Aaron with many tunnels leading to different places. Like a luxurious underground kingdom, its area was several times bigger than the ruins of Lord Aaron Kingdom. According to the executive officer of Death Knell, we should go and find. Elf Captain Lance consulted the map and said, Beta it will greet us in this city. Lan Yan also consulted the map. We'll find this place soon if we go in this direction. 10 minutes later. How come we're still not there? This is the end of the road. 20 minutes later. They looked at the map. It should be here. 1 hour later. Ugh, we're lost. They looked at the map in bafflement. It seems, the Undercity has another level. Sala, are you here? Rowling, another female elf in the team, asked. She turned her head and looked. How come you're still in the graveyard? At this moment, words appeared on everyone's screen. Your time is up. Oh, I'm so weak. I met mobs soon after I walked out of the graveyard and died many times. Sala got offline reluctantly and complained. How are you guys doing? It's been a long while, you must be many levels higher than me now, Sala asked sullenly. We're lost, the elves said with dark expressions. They got offline, and some players who had been waiting in line replaced them on the computers, finally getting the chance to play World of Warcraft. There are so many people in this mystical realm. Elder Sewell got offline and clicked her tongue while saying, I've never seen another mystical realm with so many people before. Besides the elves, the dwarves, mages, and even mercenaries were talking about the game while they walked out of the shop. You would never imagine such a mystical realm. Dwarf Elder Sock said to the white-haired and white-robed mage Adolf in a loud voice, the Grand Iron Forge is not like our city, but I assure you that you will fall in love with it the moment you see it. Just imagine countless diligent dwarves working hard in the castle that was dug out by our clansmen in the belly of the snowy mountains. This feeling, you must go and see Stormwind City. Adolf said with a laugh, the statues of heroes, the busy commercial zone, the mage zone with tranquil and elegant violet-colored roofs. Oh! We also have the wine festival. Do you know about that? Walking on the street of Kanglan City, Grand Mage Adolf said with excited hand gestures, now that we mention wine, you can't miss the Dalaran black wine in Stormwind City. Its taste is unique and rich, you must try it. Although they already got offline, the players walked out of the shop reluctantly. Oh! They are humans from the East Continent, Elder Sewell said in sudden understanding, we were busy leveling up and didn't notice them. We'll reach level 8 soon. She said proudly since she saw that many other elves had only reached level 5 or 6. They walked out of the shop while exchanging their experiences in World of Warcraft today. Meanwhile, although the shop extended its business hours, few people borrowed time from the next day. Longer time spent in the mystical realm would indeed give them more strength, but it would also cause more mental and physical stress. It wasn't easy to kill mobs for a whole day in World of Warcraft. Besides, not everyone had enough time to play 10 hours each day in the game. Whew! Mr. Dirk walked out of the shop and exhaled deeply while he looked up at the darkening sky. I spent a whole day in the game. Grumble, at this moment, a strange noise sounded. I have to stop the show now. This is the end of today's show in the new mystical realm, Mr. Dirk said, I've got to get something to eat. Shame on you. The audience from different places around the world wrote in and sounded reluctant. Judging from today's experience, this mystical realm is quite good. In this world, most prosperous areas could maintain magic communication through the Alchemist Union, and magic letters were a good way for people from prosperous areas to communicate with each other. The words leaped on everyone's magic letters. I almost thought that the Orc Kingdom had built another royal city in another land. It was magnificent. What kind of existence do you think the Blizzard Workshop in the East Continent is? From White Tulip. I'm surprised that the workshops in the East Continent have advanced to this high of a level. Have you noticed that there are many East Continent people in the mystical realm? From Observant Eye. At this moment, the two black-cloaked messengers were walking out of the Yuanyang City shop. Do you think that this is a mystical realm made by the West Continent? It's possible. Did you hear that some of them claimed to be people of the Nora continent? It must be them who created this mystical realm. The tall and thin messenger gasped and said, I'm surprised that the mystical realms of the West Continent have reached such a high level. I wonder if this Blizzard is a faction or an organization, the stout messenger said. I think we must report this to our superiors. As the first group of players got offline, the players who had been waiting for seats finally got the chance to begin their journey on the Azeroth continent. It was midnight, and the shop was still bright with lights. Fortunately, Zhuhua City had lifted the night curfew. The last group of players from different big factions and families only left at 5 a.m. For now, the computers in the shop were barely enough for all players. Despite the crowdedness in the morning, there were some empty seats in the evening. The first streak of sunlight appeared in the east. Another new day. In their dorm rooms, several Golden Griffin Knights leaped up from their beds. We can continue leveling up today, one of them said. I feel more eager to get up in the morning every day now. During the previous day's gameplay, these new players had encountered the same problems, similar to the ones that Commander Elvin and Elf Girl Sala had met. For example, they didn't know how to use certain skills, they spent a long time trying to run back to their corpses, and they got lost in main cities. Therefore, after finding that the shop had enough computers for players, they weren't as anxious to get online today as they had been yesterday. It was more so the case for the players in the old shops. In the early morning, the players turned on their communication jades and saw messages jumping on the screens. Whose live stream should we watch today? Let's watch Nalan Minxu's live stream. Yesterday, they met a few elves, and one of them fell into the elevator shaft and died. It was so dumb and cute. There are really elves. Really? It's a pity that I was busy leveling up and didn't see it. At least you were leveling up. I missed it while I watched Elder Sue's live stream. In the Kanglan City shop, Mr. Dirk came into the shop very early today. Good morning, everyone. Now, you are watching Mr. Dirk's journey in World of Warcraft. Yesterday, we saw the grand main city of the Orc race, Orgrimmar, and I think today's journey will be more interesting. With that said, he followed the crowd into the shop. There were many people in the shop in the morning, and the elves who had intended to enter the game after breakfast had to get online first before buying instant noodles. Then, they logged into the game while eating the noodles. Sala found herself still sitting in the graveyard. Forget it. I'll recover from resurrection sickness first. She was sulky when she remembered her countless deaths yesterday. Do you want to return to the inn with a hearthstone and then come back? Beside her, female elf Rowling suggested, at least you'll know the way. What's a hearthstone? A few Golden Griffin Knights sitting across from them asked casually, each with a bowl of instant noodles in their hands. It's a stone that has the teleportation spell. Sala opened her backpack and saw a round-shaped stone engraved with runes. Don't you know that? New Snow told me that I can use this stone to return to the nearby inn. Can we do that? A quest seemed to ask us to bound to a stone or something. Commander Elvin walked up from behind. But we haven't tried it yet. Should we try it later? Ugh! It's true, a knight exclaimed, I'm surprised that I got such a high-end item upon spawn. It took only a few seconds to activate, and then I'm back in the Lion's Pride Inn. They said that there are elves. How come I haven't seen any? Many people came to the livestream room early, watching the livestream cheerfully while enjoying instant noodles. Soon, someone answered with a bullet comment. Maybe they haven't gotten online yet. Be patient. They're online now. They're online now. Nalan Mingxiu clicked open the friends list and saw the names of the elves lighting up. You guys came early too. Sala friendly greeted them. Yet. We don't have classes this morning. Soon, she received Nalan Mingxiu's reply. Classes. Sala was curious. Are you students in an academy? Little kids. Hee. Many players in the old shops were watching the live stream, and bullet comments instantly flooded the screen. Ha ha ha. Little kids. Is she an elf? She sounds fun. New Snow, ask her how old she is. She looks young too. She looks younger than New Snow. Ha ha ha. It was still morning, and the live stream room was full of joyous laughter. Nalan Mingxiu sent a message over and said, my friends said that you might be younger than me. How can it be? Sala replied smugly, I've lived more than 100 years. You guys can call me older sister Sala. Although many females were sensitive about their age, many teenagers were exceptions and were afraid to look immature to others. Although 100 years were old for humans, for elves, this age was equivalent to that of a teenager. The people here usually call someone over 100 years aunt. Soon, she received Nalan Mingxiu's reply. Bullet comments appeared on the screen. New Snow is still sharp-tongued. This attribute of hers will never change. The elf will probably get mad if we call her aunt. Does it mean that we can call Elder Su Aunt Su? The person before me, are you serious? Be careful, Elder Su might appear from behind you and explode your head. Don't worry, I'm her senior brother, Pu. Liu Yundea ist Palace Master. Sala replied while hurrying toward Undercity. You guys can go ahead and do the quests, I'll be there soon. Take your time. We're lost, and I must study the situation first. Okay. While these players wandered in Undercity, Mr. Dirk of the Orc clan was enjoying the game with a grey tail sticking out from his robe and swaying around. This Orgrimmer is so huge that I feel dizzy walking in it. I'll study the map first. Where's this place, Mr. Dirk? Someone asked on the magic letter. After all, some audience members didn't watch livestream every day. It was clear that this person hadn't watched yesterday's livestream. Is he back in the Orc Kingdom? From Huge Sword of Kryma. He is in a newly released mystical realm. This seems to be a massive mystical realm made specially by the Blizzard Workshop in the East Continent. I'm sure the friend above me didn't watch the show yesterday. From Observant Eye. My goodness! Is this a mystical realm? Does the East Continent have such supersized workshops too? How come this place looks like an orc city? From Huge Sword of Kryma. This is an orc city. Each race has its own cities in this mystical realm. From Observant Eye. Really? This city looks like a real one. Are you sure that there are many such cities in the mystical realm? While they were talking, Mr. Dirk wandered around, and his new audience took the opportunity to enjoy a lot of the scenery of Orgrimmer. Right now, I seem to be in the Valley of Honor. This place looks to be an important location with so many military officers here, but they didn't block my entrance. I wonder if there are some important quests here. I'll ask these soldiers. Mr. Dirk was an orc soldier who was carrying a double-handed sword on his back. Controlling this little orc character who was about level 10, he walked into the Valley of Honor. Around him were tent-like structures built with steel and huge boulders. They seemed to be talking about a battleground? I think this is the place where they fought the Alliance. Should I join them? Mr. Dirk asked. It looks dangerous, but I can resurrect here. Besides, those military officers told me that I will only battle with opponents on my level. Should I go in and try it? Are we going to watch Mr. Dirk kill enemies and dominate the battleground? From White Tulip. Opponents of the same level are opponents of the same strength, right? Then, there's nothing to be afraid of. From Huge Sword of Kryma. We orcs are fearless. It is not fun to fight wild beasts. Finally, Mr. Dirk gets to show his real strength. Let them see the awesome sword techniques of the orc clan. From Wolf-Headed Man, it depends on who's playing, Mr. Dirk or Mr. Dog-Headed Man. If it's the latter, it will be embarrassing. From Sky Ocean Knight Legion. The audience gave Mr. Dirk two identities. One was the powerful Mr. Dirk, and the other was the embarrassing Mr. Dog-Headed Man. Although the two identities were the same person, if Mr. Dirk lost a battle or made a mistake, the audience would say that he was controlled by the embarrassing Dog-Headed Man. At this moment, the audience saw that Mr. Dirk had agreed to join the battle. In World of Warcraft, players above level 10 could enter the first battleground named Warsong Gulch, fighting for their side. Although the system version of World of Warcraft had made everything as real as possible, it was still a game and maintained the features that were convenient for the players. Take the battlegrounds as an example. As a small battleground, Warsong Gulch obviously didn't need many people in it, which was why it was designed to have a separate plane for each group of Alliance and Horde players, just like the design of dungeons in Dungeon Fighter Online at this stage. The battlegrounds in the system version of World of Warcraft divided players by every 5 levels, which meant that the players wouldn't encounter opponents more than 5 levels higher than them. In the battlegrounds, the players would gain experience points regardless if they won or lost, making it a great opportunity to practice their combat skills. It seems like we need to wait for a while. At this moment, many players had reached the required level but found that there were few people in the battleground. Ugh! Mr. Dirk suddenly felt that his body turned weightless for a second as he was teleported to a strange place. I'm in. I have entered this battleground. Let's see what the battleground in World of Warcraft looks like. Before him was a moderate-sized stone chamber with many players in it. Obviously, they had also discovered this battleground mode and entered it as the earliest participants. In the Juhua City shop, Nalan Minxu looked around in bafflement. Bullet comments appeared on the screen. Where is this place? It seems like she was teleported to another place. Nalan Minxu said, I seem to have been teleported to another place named Warsong Gulch. Only a moment ago, the military officer was explaining this to me, and here I am. How come it is so fast? After all, World of Warcraft was more refined than the Legend of Mir 2, and it wasn't as simple and crude. The players needed to learn lots of stuff. At this moment, like Elder Sewell, many players were still wandering in the beginner's zone. Like the members of the Golden Griffin Knight Legion, some still didn't know how to use the Hearthstones and only mastered skills such as Judgment by accident. The players who could go to the battleground were either lucky, skillful, or had been focusing on leveling up. For example, the dwarf Elder Sock in the Kanglan City shop had been teleported to the battleground as well, and he was one of the players with good skills. In the Half City shop, the King of Rangers, a youth who was about 14 years old, had graduated from Dungeon Fighter Online and was also trying World of Warcraft today. There was a moderate number of viewers in his live stream room. Playing as a night elf hunter, he entered the battleground while reading the messages on the screen. Give a show? I'll try. But I think we'll have a big streamer on the battleground today. Don't you think so? I don't know the situation in the new shop, but I think we might encounter masters from the Outlands. He took off his virtual reality headset and said, I'll eat some instant noodles first and see what happens on the battleground. Meanwhile, on the side of the Horde, the players were all teleported into a stone tower. The moment Mr. Dirk entered, he glanced around while holding his double-handed sword. I see enemies the moment I enter the battleground. It's indeed a dangerous place. I'm using Blood Rage. Charge. Whirling Cleave. He used his own battle technique, Execution. He yelled repeatedly as if he was controlling his combat techniques with his voice. While hacking and slashing with his double-handed sword, he used elegant movements as he charged toward a troll. Attacks are ineffective. Hiss. He seems to belong to the horde too? Oh. I hacked the wrong person. Looking at the troll who had been paralyzed by fear, the orc on the screen murmured to himself. At this moment, each player received a prompt. The battleground will be opened in 1 minute. The battle hasn't begun yet. I thought I would engage in a battle as soon as I came. Embarrassing. The audience erupted and talked amongst themselves. Dog-headed man. He's definitely the embarrassing dog-headed man. He almost hacked his teammate to death. By now, 10 teammates had all arrived, and the atmosphere became more tense during the countdown. Why does this person keep on twitching? In the Juhua City shop still need to wait for 1 minute? I'll eat some noodles then. While eating instant noodles, Nalan Mingxiu put one finger on the keyboard and moved on the left key and right key repeatedly. On her screen, the undead character moved to the left and then back repeatedly as if she was having a stroke. Beside the undead, an orc wildly hacked at the door with an axe. The attacks are ineffective at this moment. The troll who had been paralyzed by fear condensed a magic ball in his hand and crashed it onto the head of the man beside him. As a veteran player, Black Demon was playing as an undead warlock. While stuffing a spicy stick into his mouth, he controlled his character to strike the magic staff onto the head of a teammate. It seems like the attacks are ineffective here. Beside him, a Tauren hacked at him with an axe. The 1 minute was obviously a long wait for these players. Some moved from left to the right and then back, some hacked at the door wildly, and some hacked at each other with staffs and huge axes, trying to hurt each other and looking extremely violent. This scene was unbelievably pretty. The audience of Mr. Dirk's livestream were dazed by the scene. Isn't this the battleground? The battle hasn't begun yet. What are you guys doing? I read the instruction. Su Tianji's human mage character was also on the battleground. It said that the side which takes 3 flags is the winner. At this moment, the countdown had begun. 3, 2, 1. The doors finally opened, and both sides dashed out at a blistering pace. Su Tianji sat down by the Alliance's flag all by herself. Everyone, I'm sure that it's not right to rush out like this. I'll stay behind to guard the flag, so no one can steal it. Awesome! Elder Su is finally smart for once. Su Tianji was a little smug. When someone comes here to steal the flag, you just watch my skills. Sitting on the edge of the Night Elf's Ashen Vale, Warsong Gulch was covered in green turfs with many stumps left by huge ancient trees and huge boulders that had existed for many years. The Warsong Gulch in the system version was larger than the one in the original version, but it was an open space. When the players dashed out together, they soon spotted their opponents. Let's play a war song. Nalan Mingxiu finally stopped controlling with the keyboard. Last of the Wilds by Nightwish, the spiritual state language version. When the passionate music sounded, she entered the battle while listening to the music. On the battleground, the players who had ranged classes had begun attacking. Lightning bolts and flames of all colors shot across dozens of meters, exploding and creating many streaks of dazzling light on the ground. Nalan Mingxiu controlled her undead warrior character to observe discreetly at the edge of the battleground. Then, she heard a bestial roar and saw an orc warrior charging out. I'm surprised. Mr. Dirk's audience was surprised that Mr. Dirk became so valiant and fierce. Charge of a fierce man. From Sky Ocean Knight Legion. Orc sword technique. From Wolf-headed man. The warriors of this level were very powerful. Since the players didn't have adequate items and proper skill sets, they were defenseless and were easy to kill when the attacks struck their vital parts. Nalan Mingxiu, who was observing the battle, watched the orc warrior charge and kill an alliance mage with one strike. Awesome! Lead the horde to victory. the audience exclaimed. At this moment, the audience felt that the firepower of the alliance was inferior to that of the horde. Then, this orc was swallowed by all kinds of spells. That's embarrassing, how come he couldn't dodge the spells? Can these low-level spells lock onto their targets spiritually? In the system version of World of Warcraft, the magic spells could lock onto targets via spiritual energy. Even if the opponents dodged the spells would seek after them for a while. Therefore, it was hard to successfully dodge a spell. The best method was blocking them with swords or shields or countering them with attacks. That's a close one. In the flames, the orc still had a few points of HP left and immediately hid behind a boulder. At this moment, his teammates used spells, battling their opponents and not giving them the chance to focus on him. Meanwhile, Nalan Minxu had moved to the back of their enemies under the cover of the small rocky hills and plants. The mage who was targeted by Nalan Minxu casted spells while wondering, how come I have the feeling that we should have one more teammate with us? Charge! Nalan Minxu dashed out at great speed and struck her sword onto the mage's chest with vicious force. She interrupted his spell casting. While the battle went on fiercely, Su Tianji was staying behind in their home camp. She had waited for 2 minutes. Still, no one is coming. 3 minutes later, what's wrong? Outside the battleground, the King of Rangers said, I told you that there's a streamer among them. However, why do I feel like we have one less teammate? We can't hold them. 10 minutes later, Su Tianji had begun eating potato chips, and she said blurrily with chips in her mouth, how come no one is coming? Teammate, how come we've been fighting so long with one less player? She is AFK. She is going AFK so blatantly. I'm shocked. Why did Elder Su go AFK on her teammates on the battleground? Awesome. Many bullet comments appeared. Chapter 687 Online Game Scale Mystical Realm. On the side of the Alliance, the King of Rangers wasn't the only one fighting. People like Dwarf Elder Sock and Mage Adolf's disciple Dikas were also in the battleground. As a mage, she had more convenience in certain things compared to Mr. Dirk, who was a warrior. For example, she had sent back the visuals of the battleground to the Royal Magic Union and some mages who were good friends of hers. With several streamers and players who activated the spiritual spell visual projection in the battle, many people were watching what was happening on the battleground. What are they doing? Some mages had just begun watching the battle. In the spiritual spell visual projection before them, the battleground was full of flying magic spells and arrows while the players with melee characters battled fiercely. Since several players on the Alliance's side had resurrected several times, the battlefront was stretched very long and wasn't as concentrated as before. Dikas's human priest character was chanting a spell when a black shadow lunged at her. She waved her hands and chanted a simple incantation. Power word, shield. Faint lights instantly rose around her. What's this spell? A new spell. When did the Magic Union develop this new shield spell? It looks to be a small spell but seems quite useful. Many mages watching Dika's battle on the battleground were surprised. Power word, shield was different from the magic shield spell in the Legend of Mir 2. The latter could weaken the opponent's attack to an acceptable range, and the user of this spell would still be hurt by the attack. On the other hand, power word, shield could completely absorb most of the regular damage. However, the magic shield spell could allow the user to take the attack from opponents 1 or 2 levels higher, but power word, shield couldn't. Power word, shield had its own advantages. For example, before the shield was broken, it could protect its caster from most of the regular attack and wouldn't be interrupted even if the caster chanted spells right before the enemy. The magic shield spell couldn't do that. At this moment, Dikas didn't run. Instead, she chanted spells under the protection of this shield. The warrior is a bit late to charge up now, right? The priest is protected by the shield. At this level, the warrior is already halfway defeated. The first spell that Dikas chanted was Mind Blast, which took only a short time to chant. Dicas was confident in her spell-casting skills. However, in the next moment, she found that this warrior moved around her in swift steps like a twitching phantom. She tried for a long time but couldn't lock her spell onto the target. "Oh! Can you stop moving?" In the end, since she already chanted, she shot the spell forward. Pucci! It missed. She felt dizzy already. The shield was finally broken. Nalan Mingxiu's undead warrior character slashed out her sword. Looking at Dicas, who was now lying on the ground, the mages of the Royal Magic Union asked, "What are you doing?" "I'm fighting on the battleground." With tears on her face, Dicas was astonished that her opponent had dodged her spell this way. Resentfully, she returned to the graveyard and waited for resurrection. Meanwhile, Su Tianji, who had been guarding the flag, couldn't remain sitting anymore. "Don't mock me, okay?" Looking at the haters' comments on the screen, she stood up and said, "It is them who don't know how to win the battle, and no one is coming to get the flag. How can you say that I'm AF King?" After all, she was guarding the flag. It wasn't the same as going AFK. Okay. Okay. Realizing that they were all new players, and probably no one had thought of taking the flag, she finally came out. "Watch how I lead the alliance to victory. We'll lose if we continue like this." Dwarf Elder Sock was not dumb, and he knew that they were at the disadvantage and would be eliminated one by one if they didn't work together. "The resurrected players, come here. The people in the front, come back. Let's gather together. Don't be alone." Elder Sock played a dwarf hunter character who was using a gun as shown in the trailer. Crack! His firearm shot out a long stream of firelight. Before them, Liang Shi controlled his orc warrior character to charge at the dwarf. Then, he shifted to the side and dodged the bullet. Charge! Liang Shi was almost before the dwarf of the alliance when he heard a sharp sound. Then, his body turned cold, and his movements slowed down. He turned his head and saw Su Tianji still raising her magic wand after casting the spell. Meanwhile, Dwarf Sock's bear lunged at him and smashed down with his paw. Then, swoosh! A night elf hunter shot out an arrow from the cliff. Concussive shot. "We must come gather," the king of rangers said, "otherwise, we will lose the battle." Then, chilly ice spread out on the ground toward Liang Shi in waves. Su Tianji's frost nova. Immediately, Liang Shi saw another icicle shooting toward him. F***CK. Honorable kill. Together. Come and charge together. Su Tianji raised her arm and yelled, launching the counterattack. "Kill the orc who is charging toward us. Clear them together. Clear them all." The players in the horde couldn't understand the words of the players in the alliance. With his spiritual spell visual projection still on, Mr. Dirk froze when he saw arrows, bullets, and spells swarming toward him in waves. Without a chance to dodge, he was instantly killed. The players had filed into the battleground separately, so they fought for themselves. Soon, almost half of the horde players, including the mages, assassins, and shamans, were all killed and sent to the graveyard. My goodness, they are so strong. The embarrassing dog-headed man was killed. Mr. Dirk's audience was still puzzled and didn't have the time to react. They wondered why this side seemed to be dominating a moment ago, but the opponents suddenly got more powerful. "Assassin, go and take the flag. Others follow." At this moment, many horde players were still in the graveyard, and the remaining ones were instantly scattered and watched as the alliance players took their flag. Oh, the battle should be fought like this. Resurrected, Dicas followed her teammates into the enemy's camp without meeting any resistance. The alliance got 1 point. In Su Tianji's livestream room. Awesome. This battle is excellent. Very good. Even the shop owner said it was good. I told you not to mock me. Su Tianji looked smug. Now, who dares to call me an entertainment streamer? Meanwhile, this battleground feels interesting, the opponents are very strong, the audience members in the Royal Magic Union were eager to try the game after watching Daikas playing in this so-called battleground. Is this also a mystical realm? Could it be a new mystical realm? It's the Blizzard Workshop's new mystical realm called World of Warcraft. Daikas looked at them, seeming to be judging their ignorance. You guys don't know about it. Blizzard Workshop. The mages looked puzzled. Many people are talking about this previously unknown workshop. What's this mystical realm about? You just battle on the battlegrounds in it. This is only a part of it, Daikas explained proudly. Battlegrounds are only a small part of the mystical realm. The races you saw come from different main cities in World of Warcraft, and some of the people in here come from the East Continent. World of Warcraft is a mystical realm that is called an online game. People from different continents can all gather in this mystical realm. Wow, they had thought little of the rumors around it. But after watching it and hearing the introduction, they exclaimed, an online game mystical realm? This online game is so good. Where are you now? Where can we enter this online game scale mystical realm? Lava Workshop. Daikas turned the camera to another direction. Look. Who is he? The audience instantly saw an old dwarf wearing worn leather armor with a gun in his hand. This. The mages were at a loss for words. Is he Elder Sock? He's in this mystical realm too. You came to another workshop's mystical realm instead of going to the mystical realm of your dwarf clan. You mean? Elder Sock of the dwarf clan is also using the mystical realm called World of Warcraft. Keep it up, friends. At this moment, the dwarf elder raised his arm and yelled, work harder, and our alliance will obtain victory on this battleground. On the other side we'll lose all advantages if we continue this way. Mr. Dirk died a moment ago. However, as a rogue who had toured many nations, he didn't lose his cool. Our opponents are strong and were only at a disadvantage because they had one less teammate with them. Therefore, we must change our tactics. They are indeed strong. Give me a moment to consider our next move. How can you win on this battleground? On the other side, the mages watching Daikas' spiritual spell visual projection were eager to know the rules even though they were not in the game yet. Knowing the rules beforehand would help them play the game better when they were in it. It was much better than going in blind. It seems that we need to take their army flag. Daikas explained to them in the game. As a new player, she was still puzzled but knew that them taking the flag from their enemy seemed to be useful. At this moment, several mages saw a figure passing behind Daikas in a flash. I saw someone pass with a flag on the shoulder. Watching the spiritual spell visual projection, a mage said, he was right behind you. Really? Daikas looked around doubtfully, and then she said solemnly, this is a battleground, don't try to fool with me. At this moment, a rogue raced away right under their nose while carrying a flag on his shoulder. Carrying the flag couldn't be done in stealth, or the flag would drop in the original version. In the system version, the players couldn't be in stealth while carrying the flag, which meant that they could sneak in but couldn't sneak out. Come and help me. I stole the flag. Harrison howled. My goodness. Go after him. Our flag got stolen. How come he can run so fast? Seeing this scene, Su Tianji and her teammates almost dropped to the ground. With so many people guarding the flag, it was still taken away by a rogue right under their nose. It was evident that Harrison's efforts in playing Assassin's Creed paid off. He had dodged almost everyone's eyes. Right now, he raced away with the flag on his shoulder. Someone! Anyone! Help me! Nalan Mingxia was considering how to fight the battle when she suddenly heard the yell. Looking up, she saw an undead rogue racing to them with tears on his face while many people chased after him. They ran around the big tree stumps, mountain boulders, and hills again and again. Don't let him get away. Frostbolt. Concussive shot. Entangling roots. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Ah! Stop these alliance people. Nalan Mingxiu finally snapped back to her senses. Charge! Frost Nova! Roar! A druid turned into a grizzly bear and came up to stop them. Swoosh! 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 Black Demon's undead warlock character was shooting shadow bolts repeatedly. Both sides battled fiercely. Barely dragging his legs from the entangling roots, Harrison continued to run. The thief is gone. Go after him. Su Tianji began her roaring Elder Su mode. Stop him. Anyone. I'll control the area with a Frost Nova, and you guys go get him quickly. Ah! Pucci! A shadow bolt shot into her head. An honorable kill. Ah! Who did it? In the live stream room the idle Elder Su was killed again. Elder Su, open the ghost mode. Who was it? Come out for me. Ha ha ha, lowering his head, Black Demon immediately moved to another position. What should we do now? It seems that we're at a draw. Mr. Dirk still looked confused. Is it because we captured the flag? In the center of the battleground no flag now. We should probably continue, they whispered to each other. Both sides stood on the highlands in their home camps and faced each other from a distance. 1, 2, 8, 9, they did the head count. One person is missing. Now, Elder Su was sitting beside their flag again. Just watch how I defend the flag all by myself. Then, she saw a female undead warrior sneaking up. Ugh! New Snow? You dare to come and steal my flag? Nalan Mingxiu burst out. You want to charge? Su Tianji operated her character with her voice while live streaming. I'll freeze you on the spot with Frost Nova. Frost Bolt. Oh! Su Tianji stood there and cast the spell, shooting 2 arrows at Nalan Mingxiu. Awesome! Entertainment streamer versus technical streamer. Praises flooded the screen. Thanks to Elder Su's professional hater for sending 66 awesomes. Su Tianji said in satisfaction, I'll show you what a technical streamer looks like, okay. While running after Nalan Mingxiu who had struggled out of the freezing effect, she said casually, someone asked me what I would do if I lose. You guys just have no faith in me, right? If I lose, I'm a muggle. The people who had watched Harry Potter were quite familiar with the word muggle. Suddenly, a figure dashed past her from behind. How come there is another one? Su Tianji yelled in alarm. Assassin! Backstab! Ah! Su Tianji yelled, don't panic. I still have a chance. Watch how I fight 2 opponents on my own. Meanwhile, Nalan Mingxiu slashed her with a saber. Och! On the screen, bullet comments shot up. Elder Su is surrounded. Elder Su is between a rock and a hard place. Elder Su typed out GG. The bullet comments flooded the screen. 10 seconds later Su Tianji fell to the ground. Ugh! While waiting for resurrection, she found that someone donated to her. Sulkily, she took a quick look. Thanks to this elder is a muggle for 100 awesome. Ugh! Su Tianji froze. Before long, the battle on the battleground filled with newbies came to the end. Chapter 689 We discovered a super treasure reserves dead mines. Thanks to my teammates' coverage, I think I'll win this round for us. Then, he ran into a figure. Charge! During the charge, this figure took out a sword and a shield. While blocking the opponent's arrows, he killed the opponent with a slash. Honorable kill. The King of Rangers was at a loss for words. Roar! I got the flag. Dwarf Elder Sock immediately ran over to help. Although they had never met before, at this moment, they were intimate comrades. Come and help. I've controlled the undead warrior. *CK your control. Black Demon hiding in the dark casted the spell named Corruption. Shadow Bolt. At this moment, Nalan Mingxiu took the opportunity to charge up. At this moment, the orc's traits of hardness, which reduced the duration of stun effects, was quite useful. I must get away. In the critical moment, Elder Sock reacted quickly by leaping dozens of meters backward. Having dodged tons of damages, he avoided the fate of being crippled. Only 1 minute was left. Orc sword techniques. With a blood-curdling roar, Mr. Dirk hacked around wildly. At this moment, a figure fell from the sky. Pucci. I hacked on something. Honorable kill. Ugh. In Kanglan City, Dwarf Elder Sock put down his virtual reality headset in confusion and slapped his palm on his forehead. What happened, old friend? Beside him, Grand Mage Adolf asked curiously. On Elder Sock's screen, his character lay on the ground with a red flag in his hand while an orc stood over him, waving his sword. Looking at Elder Sock, who still had his hand on his forehead, Adolf made the connection and was speechless. In this fierce battle full of Grand Masters, it was hard to notice everything and hear every sound. Ugh! Ugh! Having just killed an opponent, Mr. Dirk widened his eyes. Seeing that no one was watching, he picked up the flag and raced back. What a lucky dog! The audience was amazed. Embarrassing dog! Waiting to get lucky. By now Mr. Dirk's audience obviously had summarized him and made some good quotes. It seems that they will win the battle. The dog-headed man who did nothing for the team actually won the battle. Charge of a fierce man. Orc sword techniques? Ugh! You mean we won? How did we win? My teammates are so strong. All the credit should go to my awesome teammates. Ah! Yells came from their home camp when the two brought back the flags almost simultaneously. The time was up. Soon, the result showed on the interface. The Horde was victorious. Rewards for the first victory in the battleground. The awards look plentiful. The rewards for the first victory in battlegrounds were things such as extra experience points and honor points after players obtained a victory on the battleground each day. Each player could take the rewards only once per day. Excellent! I'll do it again tomorrow. Awesome! Anyone wants to join me and fight on the battleground together? The Horde players who obtained the victory were thrilled. Meanwhile, in Elder Sue's livestream room on the side of Alliance. Entertainment streamer. Entertainment streamer. This elder is a muggle. She said that. She admitted it herself. Bullet comments flooded the screen. In the King of Rangers livestream room. I was caught off guard by her attack. It was a mistake. The King of Rangers was regretful and wanted to battle again. I leveled up. Nalan Minxu's undead warrior suddenly emitted a series of light as she leveled up, standing where she was. Where were you? In the personal chat channel, she saw messages from some elves. I went to the battleground. Nalan Minxu replied, I obtained a victory and got some first victory rewards, which includes many experience points. I even leveled up once. So fast. The elves had started to understand the layout of Undercity. They discovered that it was divided into 4 floors, and the locations marked on the map could be on any of the floors. They could only travel to different floors through the elevators in the fixed locations in the city. Since the city was bigger than the original version, there were more elevators. After all, it was troublesome to find the locations of the quests on the map and then run back to take the same elevator up or down to find the spot. At this moment, the elves finally found the way and arrived at the quest location. Sala returned to her team and said, I watched the shop owner play this and found that he is several levels higher than us. What's he doing? Nalan Minxu asked. I've no idea. I only saw him wandering in the wilderness, Sala complained. Don't mind him. Nalan Minxu said, do you guys want to fight on the battleground and take the first victory rewards? Okay. World of Warcraft was a game with many ways of playing. The players preferring PvP could level up through battlegrounds, and there was also the regular leveling up routes in the wilderness. Of course, few people would level up only through fighting in battlegrounds. With this method, the players could only level up faster than the regular way by entering each battleground without waiting and winning the battles with a landslide. The main function of the battlegrounds was leveling up the prestige ranks, which wasn't a top priority for low-level players. Therefore, the elves such as Sala and other players just went to the battleground to obtain the first victory before going back to their regular activities. While the players of the undead race in the Horde played happily on the battleground, the Alliance players began to walk out of Stormwind City. In the Juhua City shop, the royal members of the Royal Clan Guild had obviously all chosen to join the Alliance. By now, they had gradually leveled up to level 13 and level 14. Growl. At this moment, Royal Princess Jiyu and the disciples of Shengjing Academy had played the game for the whole morning, and their bellies growled. Sir, they sent a message to Mr. Fang. Can't we have 2 bowls of instant noodles each day in your shop? We're now hungry. You can order takeout if you have nothing to eat. While busy killing mobs, Mr. Fang answered casually. Takeout. Royal Princess Jiyu said in puzzlement, what's that? Touch a button on your communication jade, and your food will come. Mr. Fang said, wait a minute. No one does this in Juhua City. No, Mr. Fang thought for a moment and then browsed his QQ Dongqing Gli. Your Wind and Moon Pavilion doesn't want to do takeout business. Hey! Dongqing Gli looked baffled. Take, what? What's that? Meanwhile, in the Juhua City shop, some members of the Royal Clan Guild were still playing World of Warcraft. Suddenly, the second prince yelled, look what I found. It's a new place. Dead mines. What's this place for? Is it a treasure reserve? The second prince looked around and saw that no one had been here yet, and this place reminded him of the mine tunnels and the Corpse King Palace in the Legend of Mir 2. If this place also was a super treasure reserve like the Corpse King Palace. The second prince sent several private messages in the game. You guys, come and check this out. I found a super treasure reserve. Get more people here. Get more people here. Chapter 690 The beginning of For the Horde. In the Silver Moon Forest of the Elf Clan in the royal palace of the Elf Clan lived the royal members who enjoyed the loftiest rank within their society. Only elders and royal members could enter this place. Standing beside the lake that was as calm as a clear mirror, a silver-haired and silver-bearded old elf seemed to be able to look through the lake and into the void with his deep eyes. What do you see, First Elder? A middle-aged elf who wore the same luxurious elder robe walked up from behind. I see nothing, except for darkness, that elder murmured. How long has it been since the last time that we received a message from the elf god? Only silence answered him. Elder. After a long while, an elf reported to him, from the clues that we have gathered, we seem to have found something new. The silver-haired and silver-bearded elder of the elf clan nodded and asked solemnly, where's Elder Sewell? I haven't seen her lately. Elder Sewell went to a human nation, saying that she would try a mystical realm in a place called Origins Internet Cafe. She said that she will be back at the end of August. What month is it now? The first elder of the elf clan glanced around the trees. Despite the permanent spring in the forest, he could still detect the small changes. It's October now, Elder. Has Elder Sewell returned? Not yet. In the new Kanglan City shop of Origins Internet Cafe at this moment, messages jumped in Mr. Fang's QQ's interface. Inside the chat box with Dongqing Gli, Mr. Fang said, I say. Can't you detect any new business opportunity after being a shop owner for so long? Dongqing Gli replied, Pikachu's cute emoji, what business opportunity? You won't agree to sell me hundreds of boxes of instant noodles. Mr. Fang's face twitched. No. With so many people coming from outside the city, don't you see their needs? What needs? Mr. Fang replied. They need to eat. Dongqing Gli said, I know it. Many of them go to my restaurant, but the seats are not enough for them all sometimes. Later, some people have begun bringing meals with them, so, Mr. Fang suggested, can't you do the takeout business? Since you don't have enough seats in the restaurant, you can deliver the food to them. Now that everyone has communication jades, can't you guys use your brain and think of a solution? You might be right, Dong Qingli thought for a moment and said. Might be. What do you mean by might be? Mr. Fang's face darkened. Do you know how to do business? Do you need me to teach you how to run your own business? No. My restaurant is managed by Wan Yu and others. Mr. Fang was at a loss for words. In the chat box with Shen Qingqing, Mr. Fang said, "Do you guys have plans after graduation?" Shen Qingqing said, "What plans?" Mr. Fang said, "Don't you have any ambition? What's your dream?" Shen Qingqing replied, "My dream is staying in Zhuhua City. After playing games for a few more years, I will become a female emperor warrior with my talent." Mr. Fang said, "Don't you have a bigger dream?" Shen Qingqing said, "I think this dream is very big." Mr. Fang looked frustrated. "You lazy people! By the way, I got the content ready for the new official novels. One is Dungeon Fighter Online and the other is World of Warcraft, Rise of the Horde. The plot for Dungeon Fighter Online focused on the stories of the adventurers and thus was relatively simple. The other book, Rise of the Horde, could be seen in World of Warcraft the game. On Mr. Fang's screen, the undead rogue was holding a damaged book Rise of the Horde. When he opened the book, he could read the fragments of the story. In World of Warcraft, one could find treasure chests and treasures in the relics and caves. Likewise, there were stories about World of Warcraft in relics or libraries. They told some stirring past events relating to World of Warcraft. Fang Qi exhaled deeply. He only remembered the general plot of the story. Only if he could find the original story, even a partial one would be helpful. Of course, in the game, he could only see a damaged book written in the Horde language, which meant that he would need translators who excelled in the spiritual state language and the Nora continent language to do the work. Therefore, an idea occurred to him. At this moment, Jessica and the other janitors who were eating melons and drinking tea in the Yuanyang City shop picked up their communication jade. Ugh! An opportunity to get a promotion? Translate Rise of the Horde. What's this thing? After the teleportation array was in operation, Fang Qi could travel between his shops with ease. In the Wind and Moon Pavilion, Mr. Fang booked a compartment. Besides Mr. Fang, Shen Qingqing and the super janitor team including Jessica sat in it. Mr. Fang was sulky that he, an internet cafe owner, had to tell stories to these people. On second thought, he realized that it would be great for him if his games could be presented to all the players perfectly. As told in the book, this tale isn't about the Horde as it existed today, a loose organization of orcs, taurens, forsaken, trolls, and blood elves. It is about the earliest Horde, the Horde that first rose. Like that of any infant, its birth was marked by blood and pain, and its harsh cries seeking for life meant death to its enemies. This bloody story had a peaceful beginning. It was in a rolling valley in the green continent named Draenor. The story told how the orcs turned from a peaceful race to slaves of the Burning Legion, how they became bloodthirsty, combative, and destructive, and how Nazul and Gul'dan fell and degenerated driven by their hunger for strength and power. With a tragic tone, the book retold the gradual downfall of the orc clan and the helpless lamentations of all the conscientious orcs. The exile of the Frostwolf clan gave the orcs a sliver of hope and made them get away from the conflicts, saving the last bit of force for the orc race. The following was one paragraph from the book. Black Hand, the warlord of Blackrock clan, demonstrated the first group of warlocks that he had trained to other clans. Brothers and sisters of the orc race. Black Hand shouted, "You gave me honor and respect, and I will not let down the countless noble warriors. We're strengthening our weapons and armor each day. Now, we discard those unpredictable elements and possess true power, which means that we don't have to beg from anyone for anything. This power is controlled and mastered by our warlocks. This is true power. We have a clear objective, we will eliminate the Drania from our land. They will not be able to block the crazy herds of our warriors and warlocks. We will be their worst nightmare. Fight! He raised his arms and shouted, "For the Horde!" Thousands of voices yelled with great passion, "For the Horde! For the Horde! For the Horde!" The tragic and thrilling scene was only a small splash in the huge plot of World of Warcraft, but the words for the Horde had since spread all over the world. Mistakenly thinking that they had died, the Alliance set up these statues to commemorate these great heroes. With exquisite designs, the Stonemason Guild built Stormwind City into a place with districts that had different functions, including the prosperous trade district, noble and elegant mage quarter, and dwarven district where the dwarf and gnome artisans lived. The core of Stormwind City was Stormwind Keep, sitting at the highest position in the northwest district of the city. It was probably the most magnificent construction in the entirety of the Alliance. Every human player would be stunned by this fortress-like super city after they entered Stormwind City. All the designs, executions, and construction of the city were done by the most talented stonemason guild in the kingdom at the time. However, due to the instigations and conspiracies in Stormwind Kingdom, King Varian lost his queen, and the artisan heroes of Stormwind City didn't get their pay for their work. Instead, they were kicked out of their homes by the king. These heroes later became the BTIC Brotherhood. For the new players in the Alliance, the most stunning thing next to the grand Stormwind City was the vast and fertile Westfall full of withering weeds. This was the home camp of the BTIC Brotherhood. Blinded by hatred, they had done many crazy things and were no longer the great and talented artisans they had once been. They had contacted almost all the pirates and rogues in the world and recruited many of them into their brotherhood. Taking possession of most of the farmlands, mines, and villages in Westfall, they built their headquarters in the mine shafts. It was the background of the Dead Mines instance in World of Warcraft. The players of the Royal Clan Guild obviously had found this place through a quest. Despite the remoteness of this place, the NPC Gryan Stoutmantle at Sentinel Hill in Westfall would give quests about the BTIC Brotherhood. The dwarves in the Dwarven district at Stormwind City would give related quests as well. Following the instructions of the quests, the players would have little difficulty in finding the entrance. Therefore, besides members of the Royal Clan Guild, Lu Ningyun and other disciples of the Nanhua faction of the Morning Star Sea Realm, the mercenaries in the new shop who had chosen to join the Alliance, and mages such as Adolf and Dykas were also coming to this place. Controlling her female warrior character of the Alliance to come before the mine shaft, Royal Princess Gu saw the entrance to the deserted mine, the wagon tracks half buried in the ground, and the deserted miners' lamps. Outside the gate was a dark purple vortex, looking like a magic portal. At this moment, the Royal Clan Guild had gathered dozens of elites at this place including several princes, the Shengjing Academy instructor Liang Haihu, and his disciple Xiao Lenjiu. They looked as if they had taken over this mine for themselves. Let's go in and see what's behind this mysterious spiritual spell vortex. Jisoo said. A big team of Royal Clan Guild elites and disciples of Shengjing Academy followed her into the vortex. Ugh! The moment Jiu entered the spiritual spell vortex, she felt as if... Senior Liang! Are you still here? Miss Xiao! Captain Yu! She looked around and only saw the second prince and the fifth prince. Where are the others? How come only you two are here? No idea, the second prince looked nonplussed. Fifth prince Ji Yang said, is it because we formed a team? Ugh! Ji Yu froze. We can't stay together without forming a team here? But, the maximum of a team is 5 people. After all that, only 5 people can form a team. Royal Princess Ji Yu's face darkened, realizing that it was a waste of effort and time to gather so many people here. Forget it, Ji Yu said, let's explore this. Dead mines ourselves. If we can loot a technique book similar to Enchanting Light, they would be rich. Obviously, these players were thinking of the mine tunnels in the Legend of Mir too. The mine tunnels with many branches were illuminated since there were people living inside. The lights were dim but were bright enough for them to see their surroundings. Then, we must explore this mine by ourselves, Royal Princess Gu said. The 3 members of the Royal Clan Guild were all warriors. It seems like some people are in here, Royal Princess Gu said in a low voice. At this moment, a few members of the Defias Brotherhood in the complex depths of the tunnels heard the tiny sounds and walked up to them. As rogues at the headquarters of the Defias Brotherhood, they were very alert and had acute senses. 1, 2, 3, there are 3 of them, Royal Princess Gu whispered. Each of us take one. Charge! 3 figures bust out almost at the same time. Ding! With crisp noises, their blades were all blocked. These humanoid mobs were many times better than the mobs outside in terms of combat skills, speed, and reflexes. However, the players in the Royal Clan Guild were veteran fighters with a ton of experiences. When their swords were blocked, they turned their blades and slashed again. After experiencing Devil May Cry 3, Final Fantasy VII, and the duel, they were very skillful with both single-handed swords and two-handed swords. Soon, the rogues of the Defias Brotherhood were no match for them. At this moment, a sword beam hacked down viciously and drew out a bright silver arc. Executed. Blood sprayed in all directions. Execute was a skill for warriors, attempts to finish off a foe, turning the remaining rage into a ton of damage. In the mine tunnels, many miners and foremen of the Defias Brotherhood heard the commotion and swarmed out from the many tunnels. The miners were not strong, but the foremen had great strength. Who? We killed them all. They were good. Royal Princess Gu brushed the dust off her clothes and said in a cold voice, but they were not good enough to kill us. Meanwhile, Lu Ningyun, Mo Xian, Yu Yan, and other disciples of the Nanhua faction were. Senior Sister. Senior Sister. Cast the Frost Nova. Arcane Blast. Cast an Arcane Blast. Oh. Cast Polymorph, Sheep. They had also fought their way into the tunnel. The dead mines sounds scary, but it is quite easy, Yu Yan brushed the dust off her hands. Let's go. There might be treasures inside. The group hurried to the depths of the instance. While they walked into the interior of the mine, the scene before them changed. Walking out of the dilapidated and dim mine tunnel, they found that the space before them turned bigger, and the huge metal archway looked like a portal leading to an underground fortress. The entrance was guarded by a humanoid monster with grayish-red skin, and it was as tall as 2 men. The huge hammer in its hand was as big as half of Gu's body. Without thinking, one strike of the hammer could smash a person into a meat pie. 2 elite Defias rogues flanked him. I'll go up and cast Frost Nova and Arcane Blast. Yu Yan walked up and said. Good. Good. I'll cheer for you, junior sister. Mo Xian encouraged her from behind. On the other side, each of us charge at one of them. Royal sister, you take the big guy, okay? Of course, he's mine. Gu said proudly. The world was much bigger than what the low-level and mid-level people could imagine. Only those existences above level 7 or had a lofty status knew of this name. The name was guarded so heavily that even these people could only pick up on a few clues about it. The people in the world would be shocked if they truly understood the meaning of the name and the truth behind the shadows. Perhaps it was a mercy for most people that they lacked the logic and ability to put things together in the big picture. In the elf clan's Silver Moon Forest, the silver-haired and silver-bearded old elf gazed at the lake that was as tranquil as a mirror with his deep and turbid eyes. In the reflection of Silver Moon Forest in the lake, a gloomy shadow seemed to have appeared. Shadow Legion, the first elder of the elf clan murmured, I see its traces in the shadow of time. Meanwhile, Adolf, who was dressed in a white mage's robe, was standing on the top of a high white spire. Before him was a statue of a mage that had ancient facial features, and the statue held a crystal ball as big as a head in its hands. As he said the incantation, the crystal ball slowly revealed a strange and ancient land. Do you feel that? In the jade-like greeneries was a layer of gloomy mist which engulfed the whole place like an invisible shadowy hand. Death and desolation covered the place without the intention of loosening their grip. In this world, there might be a type of darkness that even light can't dispel. In the distant radiant light godly nation, the supreme holy palace of the judgment godly palace stood on the highest position in the mountain range covered in ice and snow. Saint Heinz had gone to the highest position in the supreme holy palace where people could almost directly face the godly light, trying to get inspiration and messages from the gods. At this moment, Saint Dullin was chanting his prayers in the sacrifice hall in the supreme holy palace. He only walked out of the hall after a long time. Then, a priest walked up and presented him with a document respectfully. "Have you found out all about it?" Obviously, Saint Dullin was quite busy, he asked while quickly striding forward. "Yes, the Origins Internet Club seems to come from the East Continent. It's a mystical realm agency for several alchemy workshops." "The East Continent?" Saint Dullin frowned. "Yes," the priest said in resentment, "it reached its hand into the continent of immortal relics, and we can tolerate that. However, now they are reaching out their hands under our nose. Damn it!" Saint Dullin snorted heavily. "Indeed, they should be damned. It would be fine if it was only a small shop. But if it was backed by the forces of the whole East Continent, we should call for all races on the whole continent to kick out these people who came from the foreign continent. They are not welcomed here," the priest suggested in a loud voice. Meanwhile, Nalan Mingxia was live-streaming the quest that she was doing with her classmates and a group of elves. With so many people in her team, the risk was low. Therefore, they chatted with each other while doing the quest. Bullet comments appeared on the screen. "It's a bonus that we can hear stories about the elf clan while watching the live stream. They said that many members of the elf clan had died while they resisted the A Knight Legion joined the battle, and many knights died too. It's a sad story." "What sad story?" Dong Qingli had finished her business talk with Mr. Fang and just began watching the live stream. Having not heard the story, she immediately sent a bullet message onto the screen, asking, "I'm new here, is there a new story here? Hey! Don't just lament about sadness, tell me the story." "Sorry, the person before me, you're late. It's what you get for not paying attention." Dong Qingli was frustrated. "The damn Mr. Fang forced me to listen to the story about ele.me and kept me from watching the live stream and listening to stories. He even called me lazy. Why? Can the food delivery business be more profitable than running a restaurant?" TL note, ele.me means "Are you hungry" in Chinese, and it is a large food delivery company in China. Feeling as if she had missed out on many good things, Dong Qingli had to wait for tomorrow's VOD. At this moment, Adolf's disciple was playing World of Warcraft in the internet cafe and finally came close to level 16. "Do you choose to release the soul?" The screen turned grey while the mob left without looking back. Level 15, 99% experience points. "Daikas, your mage character is weak." Obviously, many mages of the Royal Magic Union had been watching her doing quests. Right now, she was in Westfall as well. "You progress so slowly, and your damage is weak too. It takes you a long time to kill a mob. Why did you choose this character? I can't watch it anymore. Are the mages in this mystical realm all as weak as this one?" "Not all mages in this mystical realm are weak." A mage who had watched the battleground said, "Only her mage character is weak. I saw another mage freeze everyone with a ring of frost. Those black magic arrows are good too, at least in terms of low-level spells. Why don't you change your character? I suggest you change it." "Oh, you guys are so annoying." Daikas wondered in bafflement, "But how come I feel like this priest character is leveling up slower and slower?" She had felt fine when everyone could cast only one spell. But now, while other mages could cast several spells and could even attack a group of mobs and have crowd control, she still could cast only 2 spells? The most infuriating was that when she fought several mobs, her magic energy, mana, would run out before she could kill them. What's this holy light or something? It's not useful at all. How can it be named with the word holy? In the opening animatics, it said that I must shoulder the burden of saving the human race. How can things go awry in such a way? Meanwhile, in the Dead Mines Heya, Royal Princess Gu charged first. Charge! In another Dead Mines, Yu Yan, a mage, dashed out bravely. Frost Nova! Gu hacked her double-handed sword onto the belly of the huge ogre with a vicious force. Meanwhile, in another instance, chilly frost swept across the place as if it would freeze everything it touched. Ugh! The dark red-skinned ogre lowered its head curiously. A sword left a small scratch on the thick skin on his belly. A shaft of frost swept across his foot, giving him a cool sensation. It said in a muffled voice, "Van Cleef will get good prices for your heads." The two saw a huge hammer crashing down toward them. They dropped to the ground and couldn't get up. The two princes who were ready to charge at the remaining two monsters looked at Royal Princess Gu. Mo Xian and others who had been watching Yu Yan trying to control the monster were at a loss for words. While their faces twitched, they fled instantly. "Hey! I'm still alive!" Lying on the ground, Royal Princess Gu lifted her hand up and shouted. Clank! The hammer struck again. The fifth Prince Ji Yang said, "I felt like I heard something." The second prince, "I don't know." "Run! You, clank!" Silence permeated the area. It seems like it's not chasing us," a disciple of Nanhua faction said. The moment he said it, they heard heavy footsteps coming from the nearest corner in the mine tunnel. A huge figure appeared at the end of the tunnel. "My goodness, it is chasing after us." The group ran out of the instance, and they were out of breath. In a huff, Yu Yan put down her virtual reality headset and said, "You bullied and deserted me, a cute and smart little junior sister. Are you still human?" Mo Xian replied, "We chose the human race. Of course, we are human." Meanwhile, the brothers in the royal clan guild were beaten so hard that they almost fell below a table. "Big sister! Big sister! How come this big guy is so powerful?" After a while, fifth Prince Ji Yang finally found a chance to change the topic while raising his arms to protect his head. "Powerful! After all, she had been killed with 3 hammer strikes. If you helped me, we could still fight it. The problem is, if we did, we would still have to deal with the other 2 elite mobs," the fifth prince said with a troubled expression. At this moment, the people who had entered the dead mines came out one after another. They either came out shaken after having a tough time, or they came out as souls, waiting to return and pick up their corpses. "Should we," fifth Prince Ji Yang said with a dark expression, "should we find 2 more teammates and try it again?" "What are you doing here?" a voice came from the nearby crowd. Nalan Hongyu glanced around the crowd with a sword in his hand, seeing that many people had gathered here. "This mine is impossible to pass," said fifth Prince Ji Yang. "Should we call the shop owner?" Ji Yu complained, "I feel like it's not a quest for players who are level 16 or 17. There must be a problem with this quest." With a frown, Nalan Hongyu thought for a moment and said, "Don't call him. I'll go in and try it with you guys." When he watched and played The Legend of the Sword and Fairy 4, Nalan Hongyu was deeply stunned by the human cultivator's spirit of independence and self-improvement. Regardless if what they did was right or wrong and what the ending was, the unyielding determination touched him more than anything else that he experienced. It was a sensation different from the amazement he felt when playing the previous games in the Legend of Sword and Fairy series. In the past, he had only been amazed by the novel sword techniques, spiritual spells, and the great powers exhibited by the immortals and demons in the games. Those powers didn't belong to mortals after all. One would be extremely fortunate to learn a sliver of it. But the spirit and the determination of overpowering the mandate of heaven shown in the legend of the Sword and Fairy 4 gave him a different feeling. Mortals were born insignificant, but perhaps this willpower and spirit were what made them great. I think we must find a solution by ourselves this time, said Nalan Hung Guyu. But, Yu Yan complained, that monster can't be frozen, and we will be killed or severely wounded by one touch of that big hammer. I don't know what other skills it has. I think Senior Nalan is right, Liang Haihu said in a loud voice. Each time we meet some difficulties that seemed impossible to solve, we would ask Mr. Fang, and he would solve them with ease. What does it tell us? It means that the designs are reasonable, and we just didn't find a way to deal with these difficulties. Knowing this, why not try it ourselves? Yu Yan and the others froze. You're right, Lu Ningyun suddenly nodded deeply. Why can Mr. Fang do it? Because the mysterious senior gave him private lessons? Why do we always think that other people, who can solve problems that we can't, must have had private lessons or even cheated? Mr. Fang's proficiency in the game and familiarity with each detail couldn't simply explained by having private lessons. Perhaps he had experienced the same hardships and had even thought that these issues were impossible to overcome. However, he had kept working on it to accumulate experience and finally found a way to solve the seemingly impossible problems. Perhaps it is just that we don't know about his hard work? Yu Yan wiped sweat off her forehead while blazing determination appearing in her eyes. You're right. Today, we'll explore by ourselves. Like the people in the legend of the Sword and Fairy 4, we must strengthen ourselves and take our destiny into our own hands. Then, Liang Haihu said with enthusiasm, Senior Nalan, Princess Jiyu, Fairy Lu, Mo Xian and I will form a self-improvement team today. How about me? Yu Yan stared at them and gaped. Mo Xian said in a hurry, Junior sister, you just wait here. This self-improvement must be very tiring. When I get tired, you can take my place, okay? The knights in this world were more noble than ordinary warriors. They were usually personal guards of different forces or protectors of a certain area. For example, the Golden Griffin Knight Legion was one of the guardians of Kanglan City. In fact, even the Stan Kingdom, the nation of knights, didn't have a clear definition for knights. Perhaps they were warriors who sat on mounts. At this moment, a group of paladins in the Kanglan City shop finally earned enough money to learn skills. It seems like there's a quest. Having learned new skills, the knights chatted with the trainer who usually only shouted, May the holy light be with you. They found that they had another quest left to do. At this moment, the prompt for the quests on the interface were about to turn grey. In this online game, the grey-colored quests gave no experience points. If you agree, I'll give you a book. With this book, you'll understand what holy light is and its expectations for you, the trainer said. After understanding it and proving your abilities, you'll obtain greater power. Soon, Commander Elvin chose to accept it and received the quest for the Tome of Divinity, which was a special quest only for paladins. What's this? Other knights moved over to Commander Elvin and took a look. It was an ancient and thick book with a dark green cover. The content of the book seemed to be the ancient beliefs and code of conduct for paladins. In all things, paladins must reflect the light, which supplements our strength. To strive to be divine for one of our kind does not mean we strive for godhood, we strive to be good in all actions. Although called upon to smite evil in these harsh times, you must always remember that it's aiding others that will truly set you apart from the other citizens. Compassion, patience, bravery, these things mean as much to a paladin as strength in battle. Know this well, and never forget it. After reading this book, the paladins followed the instructions of the quest and helped pure-hearted people in difficulties. While they did these good deeds, they began to consider the meaning of being a paladin. They felt as if they were engulfed by the warmth from the friendly smiles, sincerest blessings, and heartfelt gratitude. They felt as warm as if they were bathed in holy light. Finally, after they had proven their compassion and patience, they came before the trainer again. At this moment, they received a quest to rescue a dead person. It's already a corpse, and we need to go and save it. The paladins exchanged a look, reading the shock and alarm in each other's eyes. They had heard from the trainer that he would teach them the greatest power of holy light. Could it be that the greatest power was? Their horrified expressions turned into shock. It was evening. The setting sun shined on the small lanes in the fields, and the sunlight seemed to spread dark red blankets over them. Some kids were frolicking tirelessly at the entrance of the village, and a butterfly lightly landed on a nearby fence which was covered by vines of morning glory. Most of the busy villagers had walked back home after a long day. A middle-aged shepherd hummed an unknown song while he herded a group of sheep through the fields. Also, the hunters returned, chatting and laughing after a day of hunting magic beasts in the forest. Right now, giant grey wolves were draped over their shoulders. Suddenly, like a dream, black winds swept across the land, and lightning bolts and thunder tore open the sky, shattering the tranquility of the small town. A thin and tall demon-like figure walked out of the darkness. Another figure wearing a wide black mage's cloak walked beside him. Under the cloak, nothing but a dark void could be seen. They walked up as if they had brought death with them. You're, a farmer froze and asked uneasily. Ah, we need some sacrifices. You mean these cows and sheep? The farmer looked at the horrifying figures with confusion and fear. No, in the shadows, it seemed like a monster opened its giant mouth. A shrill scream rose and didn't stop for a long time, as if this person who just screamed was being cruelly tortured. It didn't stop even when the voice turned hoarse. Blood sprayed all over the ground. All the people in the town, regardless if they were civilians and warriors, screamed in fear and fled as if they had become crazy. Don't waste our time, the figure dressed in the black robe said. No, seeing the people struggling in pain, the thin and long figure said, it's fun, isn't it? No, don't come closer. Two knights drew out their long swords and demanded. Don't you want to run? We're not afraid of you. While shaking, the two knights stood their ground with cold sweat drops sliding down their heads. They looked as if they would turn and run in the next instant. You are looking for me, right? At this moment, a middle-aged knight walked out from the crowd. You are. The two knights studied the bearded man whose face looked like a lion. In disbelief, they looked again to confirm and shouted, Lion's Heart. Are you Lion's Heart Sudifair, a level 9 knight? You guys back off. The middle-aged knight looked grim. But in the next instant, with a snort of pain, the level 9 knight looked down at his chest in horror and saw that his heart was gone. Only a black claw-shaped hole was left in its place. Level 9, Knight. The thin and tall figure smirked and tossed away the knight's corpse as if it was a piece of garbage. What garbage is that? As if countless horrifying monsters and evil creatures struggled out from the darkness, screams and howls filled the small town which had been tranquil a moment ago. Even the frolicking kids at the entrance of the village were turned into corpses with distorted faces as if they had experienced things that were extremely painful. The whole place was turned into a living hell of blood and death. We only need a little sacrifice. No one knew about the event that was taking place on the other end of the continent. Kanglan City was as bustling and busy as usual. It must be noted that in the period before Fang Qi traveled through time and space, the max level in World of Warcraft was level 60, and every class had its class quests every 10 levels. The quests explained each class's code of conduct, beliefs, and the meaning of its existence. From doing these quests, the players learned that their classes weren't just different in name, there was more to it. Having come to this stage of their quests, the Golden Griffin Knights had the last person to save, and it was a dwarf. The dwarf who they had saved in the cathedral told them that some dwarves had overheard the scheme of the Defias Brotherhood by Stonecairn Lake in the east of Elwyn Forest and tried to stop them. They were attacked during the process, and their brother, Hensa, died while he tried to hold off the mages of the Defias Brotherhood. Coming to Stonecairn Lake, the Golden Griffin Knights started to breathe rapidly. Can we really use this? Commander Elvin was uneasy while he held the symbol of life that the best paladin in Stormwind City had handed to him. Can we really bring people back to life with this? Chilly rain was falling in Stonecairn Lake. At this moment, the defious rogues had been driven away, and only a cold corpse lay in the center of the small island. It was a stout dwarf whose clothes were soaked by the rain. With a ton of blood washed away by the rain water, this dwarf obviously had been dead for some time. Use this thing. Under the gazes of other Golden Griffin Knights, Commander Elvin activated the symbol of life with holy light in his body. Soon, his palms and body were engulfed by a wave of warm light. The golden light seemed to have spread to the dwarf's corpse. Then a hole appeared in the dark clouds in the sky, and a beam of golden light shined on the corpse. Then, they watched as the corpse recovered his senses and got up from the ground. Miracle! It's a miracle! Seeing this scene, the knights were greatly amazed and deeply touched while they witnessed the miracle under holy light with their own eyes. This amazing power, and this terrifying miracle. Is this what paladins are? No. Even saints can't bring the dead back to life. It was the forbidden privilege of gods. They were elated and thrilled that they could bring a person who had been dead for a long while back to vibrant life. They felt as if they had grasped a giant horrifying secret. They felt like it was probably the biggest miracle in the world. No thing could top it. Thank you. When the dwarf stood up, most of the wounds on him were all healed. Thank you for saving my life. Not everyone can use the symbol of life. The fact that you can activate it means that you have enough faith. Oh. Really? Commander Elvin looked around in disbelief. I also think that Mr. Elvin is a humble and friendly person. Oh. Ha ha ha. Does it mean that I can learn this ability? Commander Elvin said in elation. From now on, they had a new skill. Redemption, brings a dead ally back to life with 35% of their maximum health and mana. Perhaps at this moment, they truly embarked on the holy journey of paladins. I think we should try this. After obtaining this new skill that was SP powerful that it could be considered a miracle, the members of the Golden Griffin Knight Legion were as elated as kids who had just gotten a new toy. Walking out of Stormwind City into Duskwood and Westfell, they cast redemption whenever they saw a corpse. The people had died due to various reasons such as being ganged up on by mobs falling short on mana. Regardless of what caused their deaths, they were resurrected one by one. Seeing the confusion and elation on the faces of the revived people and how they turned into gratitude in the end, the paladins felt like their hearts were wrapped in warmth. May holy light be with you, they yelled. This feeling is so good. Helen sat down on a boulder by the road and drank some water to recover her mana. Meanwhile, the exploration in the dead mines continued. Stop it! Stop it! Shouts came from the mine tunnels. Turn the elite mobs to sheep. Mage's spell, Polymorph, Sheep, was miraculous and could last a long time even at low levels. Two mages waved their wands, and the two elite monsters flanking the boss instantly turned into bleeding sheep. At this moment, the ogre roared. Bypassing Nalan Hung Guyu and Liang Haihu, it lunged at the two mages behind them. Caught off guard, mages who were just above level 10 didn't have enough physical strength to deal with the boss even if they had fast reflexes. They were smashed instantly. Then, the whole group was wiped out. It's impossible to win, Mo Xian complained. Obviously, it wasn't the first time that they were wiped out. In the system version of World of Warcraft, there were no skills to fixate aggro, which meant that the melee players must do their best to anger the target since the monsters would decide whom to attack using their own judgment. If it thought that the ranged players posed a greater danger, it would dump the melee players and lunge at the ranged players. I think that you warriors should have stopped it when the big guy lunged at us. How could we? Royal Princess Gu said angrily, we can only dodge its giant hammer and attack it while jumping around. I can't block it even with my double-handed sword. Its strength is so great that even the counterforce will make us spit blood. We can't win unless our defense can block its attacks, Liang Shi said, but the truth is, the strength gap is too huge for us to do that. How about? I will try again with a shield. As a man who grew up in the military, Nalan Hongwu had used every kind of weapon in his hundreds of years of service in the army. Besides, there were shield soldiers in Dajin. Change to shields. Their eyes suddenly brightened. When they entered the dead mines again, they were more proficient. Immediately, they turned the two elite mobs into sheep, and then Nalan Hongwu charged with a shield. 3 warriors tried to battle around the ogre. Soon, the ogre lunged at the mages in the back of the formation again. At this moment, Nalan Hongwu blocked the ogre's way with a shield. Get out! The ogre smashed its hammer onto the big shield with vicious force. Excelling in every kind of weapon, Nalan Hongwu shifted the shield slightly to the side, and the ogre's huge hammer slid to one side while gliding on the surface of the shield. This impact only forced Nalan Hongwu to retreat a few steps. That's effective. Everyone got excited, thinking that they were closer to success. Continue with the DPS. The two mages chanted the magic spells again. The ogre moved, and Nalan Hongwu moved with this monster. Meanwhile, the mages adjusted their distances continuously. Soon, the ogre was covered in wounds. But at this moment, they suddenly found. No. Senior is going to fall. He can't take it anymore. Liang Haihu roared. While the big shield managed to block the attacks, the huge impact force from the hammer strikes could still injure the defender's organs. Each player worked like a highly efficient machine, but they still were no match for the boss at the moment. Soon, the party was wiped out again. Should we change to shields too? Waiting to recover the corpses was a long process. Each time they died in an instance, they had to release their souls and come back from the graveyard. At this moment, a group of knights and mage daikas also came to this place. Why are you all standing here? Why don't you enter? Commander Elvin and the other Golden Griffin Knights looked at them curiously. It was after 4 p.m., and most of the players had spent over 8 hours in the game now that the limit of daily game time was 10 hours. Soon, players of all classes from different places of the Alliance gathered here. We're waiting for our teammates to run back and recover their corpses. Looking at this unfamiliar paladin, Liang Haihu said mildly. Run back, for corpses. Commander Elvin said friendly, do you need help? We can help resurrect your teammates and save you lots of time. Of course, another reason for his offer was that these paladins were still eager to cast this spell after using it many times. Helen felt like screaming. Each time she resurrected a dead person, she felt like a great miracle rose right before her. Resurrection. Not only Liang Haihu and his party, but all other players standing by the entrance of dead mines looked toward them in stupefaction. The players who had played other games in the shop knew that all the techniques, immortal spells, and artifact-making skills were not faked. They could all be learned and used in the real world. If it was true, then at least all the players in the new shop including Dwarf Elder Sok, Elf Elder Sewell, and Daikas all looked at them in disbelief. Is there really such a spell? If it is real, then the soldiers charging and fighting on battlegrounds will never fear death again. I use Holy Light too. Isn't Holy Light a spell used to attack enemies? Daikas was frustrated as she thought, I can't even properly level up, but others can even resurrect people and heal injuries. You mean his Holy Light can heal people, but yours can't? Liang Haihu asked. There seems to be a healing spell, Daikas said morosely, but it's constantly interrupted and not useful. Didn't you put any points into talents? Royal Princess Gu asked casually. Haven't you learned any skills? Liang Haihu asked as well. Since the game was a product of Blizzard, many old players had discovered that it had a talent tree just like the skill tree in Diablo 2. However, the newbies didn't know that. Daikas had tears on her face since she had died many times and used all her money to repair her items. I saw healing skills but I have no money to learn them, she felt like crying. After all, she spent all her money to learn the offensive skills and couldn't afford to learn the healing skills which looked ineffective to her. As a high-level mage in the Royal Magic Union, she was so poor that she couldn't even afford to learn spells in this mystical realm. What kind of mystical realm is this World of Warcraft? Why is it so hard? What? Talents? Dicas froze and then pulled up the interface. I clicked on it. I clicked them all. Such as Discipline and Mind Blast, etc. There are 3 talents in each class, GU said, check and see if you have the other 2 talents. Ah! Baffled, Dicas opened the interface for talents. Other talents? How come this online game is so complicated? I've never seen these things in other mystical realms. Dicas, who had never played online games before, had tears on her face. With others' help, Dicas finally discovered that there were 3 specializations of talents, including Discipline, Holy, and Shadow, and shields and healing could be used on allies. The members of the Golden Griffin Knight Legion discovered that Paladins also had 3 specializations of talents. I never knew that the Holy Light spells should be cast this way. The knights and mages who had never played online games before finally understood it. I always thought that I'm a mage, warrior, but now I finally realized that it's a class for healing people. I know what to do. At this moment, an idea dawned on Royal Princess Gu. If Senior Nalan becomes too weak to block the attacks, we can help him with healing spells. Standing beside her, Liang Haihu said with sudden understanding, combining this Ms. Priest's shield, I'm sure that we can pass this time. No. I'm a mage. A mage who can cast holy light spells which are as golden as an immortal spell. I'm a woman who wants to focus on DPS. How come I became a nanny? TL note, Chinese players give the healing class players the nickname nannies and call healing spells milk. While Dicas was still in a daze, she was pulled into the instance. Of course, Commander Elvin's paladin character was also pulled in, since only the paladins could cast redemption. So, the team consisted of Nalan Hungwu as the main tank, Commander Elvin as the off-tank, 1 nanny, and 2 mages. I'm sure that they can pass it this time. Royal Princess Gu wasn't a part of this exploration party anymore, but she was still excited, knowing that if the plan was proved effective, she could copy it and use it in her own team. I also think that we've finally found the solution. Liang Haihu said excitedly. The confused Dicas, who was pulled into the exploration team, was at a loss for words. The weak mobs in the mine tunnels had been cleared long ago, and the 5 of them soon came before the boss. Nalan Hungwu had kept his live stream on, and there were many people watching it. What is Old Duke doing here? Some newbies among the audience were puzzled. The technical streamer is doing exploration on live stream. Obviously, some audience members, such as the Ling Yun Academy disciple Xi Chi, had watched the live stream for a while now. They had been wiped out all afternoon. I hope they can pass this time. Is this Dead Mines really so difficult? How come there is such a big monster? As a priest who had difficulty fighting weak monsters, Dicas was alarmed when she saw this big ogre. Can we fight it? Heal us, and I assure you that we can do it. Mo Xian promised her with confidence. Nalan Hungwu charged at the ogre without a fuss. Mages, turn the 2 elite mobs to sheep. Each of you take 1. Dicas still kept her spiritual spell visual projection on, and the mages in the Royal Magic Union who were still watching widened their eyes at this scene. What spell is this? They had instantly turned 2 lively and extremely dangerous enemies into harmless little sheep. More importantly, this spell was instantly cast. What did it mean? In these mages' minds, the low-level mages could only instantly cast the super low-leveled spells such as small fireballs or burning spell. They had to spend time on chanting and casting if they wanted to use any spells that had greater power. Even for saint-level masters, polymorph, sheep was an extremely powerful spell. Unlike the players of the old shops who had seen the transfiguration spell in Harry Potter, the mages on Nora continent had never seen it before. They even had the feeling that the previously unknown Blizzard Workshop knew more about magic spells than themselves. Although these mages hadn't seen Redemption yet, Holy Word, Heal, Frost Nova, and Polymorph, Sheep were all classic spells on their own. This Blizzard Workshop, what is its background? Getting even more astonished, the mages who were watching exclaimed, "How can it be so knowledgeable in magic spells? It's incredible," a male mage commented. The spells were simple and effective for mages of all levels, including low-level mages to level 8, 9, and even higher mages. I'm sure that such spells will create a hot new magic spell trend. Eagerness grew stronger in everyone's eyes. With the impact force totally absorbed, Nalan Hungwu stood his ground firmly. When his shield was broken, a streak of holy light would fall on him before he received another power word, shield. Everyone's eyes lit up at this scene. This exploration was now on a different difficulty level compared to before. If the previous exploration was on the hellish difficulty level, then the present one was on easy difficulty. Only Nalan Hungwu needed to keep his eye on the boss to prevent it from lunging at others. As for others in the party, "I'm doing DPS without thinking," Mo Xian yelled. The group was supported by the powerful main tank. Every time the ogre tried to bypass Nalan Hungwu and lunge at the players in the back, Nalan Hungwu would take the critical position and appear in its way. If it focused its attention on attacking Nalan Hungwu, it was impossible for it to win. The players behind Nalan Hungwu felt no pressure at all. It seemed as if an iron wall had been put up between them and the boss. "I feel like we're unrivaled this time," Mo Xian yelled. All kinds of spells and sword and saber techniques poured toward the boss without mercy. "We passed it!" Elated shouts sounded. At this moment, they were filled with an inexplicable thrill. It was the elation of success after overcoming a difficult challenge. Wahahaha! Mo Xian almost jumped up in joy. Putting down her virtual reality headset, she turned a circle sitting in her swivel chair, feeling as if they had created a new era. Nalan Hungwu exhaled deeply and put down his virtual reality headset as well. In his livestream room, comments such as "awesome" flooded the screen. Seeing powerful enemies falling before them, the other members were also thrilled, including Ji Yu and Liang Haihu, who had backed out voluntarily for this new strategy. This was the result of collective wisdom, and they deserved a portion of the credit. Smugly, Mo Yan sent a screenshot to Mr. Fang. "Sir, aren't we good? Isn't it a nice surprise? Our self-improvement team killed the boss in the dead mines all by ourselves. We also discovered a super powerful system of warrior, mage, and priest. Are you envious of us?" Busy with the official novels, Mr. Fang suddenly saw this QQ message. He clicked it open and read it. Hiss, meme of Mr. Fang clapping, "Awesome! Awesome!" Mr. Fang drew on his cigarette and said deeply, "But, you are using QQ shortcut keys to take this screenshot? Aren't you controlling your character in the game?" "Yeah, any problem with that?" Mo Xian said smugly, "We cleared all the nearby mobs." "Don't worry." "Wiped out," Mr. Fang replied. "What wiped out? Look at the game. Your party was wiped out." "Impossible. You're just jealous that this fairy created a new..." While she spoke, she switched to the game era. Her voice turned weaker and weaker when she froze at the scene before her. Her screen was grey. Only Paladin Elvin was still swinging his sword against waves of mobs while yelling with indignation, "Ah! Where are you guys? How come you are all AFK? The party was wiped out." The commotion of the battle in the dead mines will easily alert the patrolling mobs behind the gate. If you guys drop your guard, you'll be wiped out. Then, Mo Xian saw Mr. Fang's reply. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Mo Xian was frustrated. After recovering their corpses in the dead mines with great efforts, they cleared the patrolling mobs. After defeating the monsters guarding the door, they entered the interior of the dead mines and discovered that the interior was a huge spacious area. It looked like a huge underground kingdom. Walking deeper into the tunnels, they saw a huge lumber mill. Sneed was leading its goblins to process every wood piece with great care. His huge shredder not only could be used for cutting wood but was also a powerful mecha. Walking down the wide spiral steps, they saw a huge furnace center. Smelter Gilnet and a team of engineers were mining all kinds of minerals and ores while all kinds of machines and cannons were being developed in this place. F***CK. Take positions. Don't pull the patrolling mobs. Pull over here. Pull over here. Dropped. Despite the occasional wipeouts, the players worked more smoothly after getting familiar with the system of warrior, mage, and priest. Luxury jewelry ring. A ring with a blue name appeared before everyone. Blue rare quality. A ring. After all, the players hadn't seen a piece of jewelry yet after playing for so long. At this moment, all players were using white common equipment and green uncommon equipment. The loot distribution system in World of Warcraft had 3 methods: rolling for points, free for all, and assigned by the leader. Clearly, they chose the method of rolling, which was fair and just. Give me 100 points. Mo Xian exclaimed, excited that the first boss dropped something good. She rolled 30 points. I'll try it. Nalan Hungui rolled for need. TL note, in group loots, all members in the party will get a rolling window with the item and 2 buttons. Party members can press the dice button to need roll for the item, or the gold coin to greed roll for the item, or lastly the red X close button to pass on the item. The looting will first resolve all need rolls, if none then greed rolls. 28 points. Mine. Mine. For the mages in the real world, the magic pieces of jewelry were quite valuable. Even though this ring was only a virtual item, Daikas was still excited, which made people wonder about her purpose in the mystical realm, cultivation or something else. She immediately clicked on need roll. 90 points. Ha 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 ha. Teammate Fairy Lu obtained the item, luxury jewelry ring. 100 points. Ahai. Daikas almost spewed out blood. This ring can only be used in this mystical realm, right? What's so good about it? The mages who were watching Daikas' spiritual spell visual projection looked puzzled. Aren't you in the mystical realm for cultivation? How come you look as if you are here just to play in this so-called online game? At this moment, their playtime was almost up. Should we borrow some time from tomorrow? Lu Ningyun suggested. Let's do it. I will give you milk. Daikas was excited at the good item that they had looted. I can borrow 10 hours. Nalan Hungwu said, I have no objections. We need to return to our faction tonight, Lu Ningyun said, let's borrow 2 hours. With our current pace, we can kill the next boss if we're careful. I still have training tomorrow. Commander Elvin looked worried. Don't worry. We'll play at most 3 to 4 hours. Let's go. Mo Xian assured him. Okay. Okay. We'll finish this instance and get offline in 3 to 4 hours. Sir. Add 3 hours for us. 3 hours later clear the mobs before us. Don't pull the patrolling mobs. They roared in the game. When the group entered the depths of the mine, the players saw a huge ship equipped with many cannons docked on the vast underground lake. They had never imagined that there would be such a powerful weapon in the depths of the mine. This ship was the ultimate weapon that the Defias Brotherhood intended to use to destroy Stormwind City. The gifted artisans and builders had spent the first half of their lives on building Stormwind City, and the second half of their lives were invested in this ship. This ship's mission was to destroy the masterpiece that they had created in the first half of their lives. Add 5 more hours. I think we'll finish this instance soon. The mages who were watching Daikas' spiritual spell visual projection almost wet their pants when they heard it. They want to continue. After the players fought their way onto the battleship, they encountered 4 bosses including First Mate Mr. Smite, Captain Greenskin, Murloc Cookie, and Leader Van Cleef. It's lunging at the back, Cast shields on the players at the back. Pull it. Warriors, keep the aggro. We did it. Daikas, Mo Xian and others all had dark circles under their eyes. Ah ha ha ha. Look at what items they dropped. The mages, who had been watching Daikas doing this instance led by people of the East Continent, looked out at the sky dumbfoundedly. It's daybreak now. You people of the East Continent cultivate so damn enthusiastically. This wasn't a great story, and there were no heroes in this story. In this story, a group of talented but tragic stonemasons wanted to receive their proper pay, but they destroyed themselves in the end. Most players in World of Warcraft felt that the legendary heroes and great deeds were out of their reach. However, after entering the game, the players had experienced the long and eventful history. The heartwarming scenes when paladins did their class quest, the many mistakes the newbies made in the battleground, the rolling battle between the lucky and the unlucky players for looting, and the simple and touching stories in the quests. Any player could experience and sense these detailed things. Every player, even the newbies who didn't know to add points on talents, was touched by these stories and events. When this group passed through dead mines, it was almost 4 o'clock in the early morning. Move away. Let me loot the corpse. Having won the jewelry ring with 100 points in rolling, Lu Ningyun yelled and reached out her lucky hand. Cruel Barb. Cruel Barb 1 hand 30-57 damage speed 2.8 great attributes. Although the characters in the system version didn't have digitized bodies, the equipment still had reference data, showing the quality of each item. Since almost everyone was still using green uncommon items, this equipment was an ultimate item for them. 100 points. Give me 100 points. Nalan Hungwu yelled while he chose need. He got 11 points. Ah! How come it is so low? Nalan Hungwu howled, feeling heartbroken after working hard for one night. Ha 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 ha. Commander Elvin's heart raced when he saw this number, thinking that he would finally get a reward for resurrecting corpses for one night. I'll take it then. Commander Elvin said while laughing, thank you. Thank you very much. A prompt appeared on the game interface, Griffin Knight Elvin chose need. Need, 1 point. Liquor Sword Immortal, ID, received the equipment Cruel Barb. Looking at the blue single-handed sword in his backpack, Nalan Hungwu felt as if he had just leaped up from the lowest valley to the top of the world. Ugh! Ah ha 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 ha! He was feeling so much joy that he almost went crazy. Ah! Seeing the points that he rolled out, Commander Elvin let out a soul-wrenching howl, looking as sad as a kid who weighed 300 pounds. When two unlucky players tried their luck, one of them must be even unluckier. By now, the battle between two unlucky players came to an end. Tomorrow. Ugh, we'll continue the game the day after tomorrow. Okay. Okay. Tomorrow, I'll help each of you get a weapon. Obviously in a great mood, Nalan Hungwu added all of his new teammates as his friends regardless if he knew them before this or not. For the first time, Daikas, who had come to the end of her patience while playing was a priest, felt the friendliness and charm of the game. After all, some quests were beyond the ability of an individual, but they still could reach the end of the journey by helping and receiving help from players whom they had never met before. After working with each other for some time and getting along, the players began to learn to entrust their safety to others. Since mages and priests trusted that their teammates in the front could shoulder the responsibility of protecting the whole team, they could do DPS and heal as much as they could. The melee players could only charge at the enemies without a care when they believed that the mages and priests behind them were competent enough to cast shields and healing spells on them whenever they were at a disadvantage. In this world, a friendship going beyond distance and boundaries formed among the players who were previously strangers, and the quests and instances helped them build a trust that was rarely seen among people. Tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and days in the future, their friendship and trust in each other would continue. For the players who had gotten good equipment, the friendship and trust were their gifts for those teammates who had worked hard for one night but obtained no rewards that they deserved. It was now 4 a.m. in the early morning. These players had greater energy than ordinary people, but it was still a big drain of their spirit and energy after battling in the virtual reality world for 20 hours without stop. Glassy-eyed, the members of the party that explored the dead mines walked out of the shop. Commander Elvin looked around. Ugh! He saw that all other members of the Golden Griffin Knight Legion also walked out of the shop. How come you guys are so late too? Commander Elvin asked in surprise. We don't want to come here tomorrow on our own. It is boring without everyone there. Yet, we must do things together, so we enjoyed ourselves today too. Let's go. Let's go. Elvin suddenly froze. In the game, they made friends whom they had gotten to know and trust. On top of that, in the real world outside the game, they had a group of friends who would stick together through all the hardships and merriment. The Knights of the Golden Griffin Knight Legion walked out together and talked among themselves. Have you finished the death mines? You know what? Today, I found a treasure chest when doing a quest. There were several gold coins in it. They walked away from the shop in the darkness while talking among themselves. Let's go and have breakfast. Now that you mention it, I'm starving. On the other side, it was almost dawn when people such as Lu Ningyun and Mo Xian returned to the Nanhua faction. The distant east sky began to lighten. A few figures hurried across the Nanhua square. Hurry! Hurry! The morning lesson is about to begin soon. We must greet Master before that. Hurry, or we'll be late. Hey! In her courtyard, their master, the Zika spiritual master, opened her eyes in the darkness. How come you people came so early today? Their faces froze. They had cultivation homework to do each night. If their master learned that they had played all night, they might be scolded. Each faction had its own inheritance. It wasn't right to dump their unique ways and become a copycat. They needed to get inspirations to improve themselves and thus find their own path. They couldn't achieve that if they didn't do their own cultivation work. Yu Yan quickly thought of an explanation. I had a sudden understanding about the immortal Dao, so I called over senior sisters to talk about it. A collective session of cultivation. The Zika spiritual master froze for a second and then said, Indeed. The cultivation of immortal Dao is like sailing against the current, you'll fall behind if you don't move ahead. Good. It's good to hear that you are working so hard on it. Yeah, we worked hard on cultivation through the night. With dark circles under her eyes, Yu Yan quickly winked at each other to pass the message. The Zika spiritual master suddenly changed the subject. Then, have you passed the dead mines? We have. The undead rogue Harrison yelled standing at the entrance of the Wailing Cavern, self-improvement team for the Wailing Cavern is calling for a nanny and a main tank. They had obviously heard the terms such as main tank from Mr. Fang and just picked them up. Nalan Mingxiu shouted, we have a main tank for the Wailing Cavern. We'll begin whenever a nanny joins us. On the side of the Alliance at the entrance of the dead mines, some students of Shengjing Academy began yelling, we need a mage to begin the exploration of dead mines. 4 players waiting on 1. Sok Stonema requests to join the party. Hunter. He was rejected. Mage Adolf requests to join the party. Mage. Confirmed. Do you know how to do it? Of course. Adolf looked baffled. I'm a level 9 mage. How can I not know how to be a mage? Good. Come on. The exploration began immediately. 2 warriors, 1 healing paladin, and 2 mages reached the first boss without issues and didn't talk as well. 2 mages, turn the 2 elite mobs to sheep. I'll hold off the boss. Familiar with this strategy, the students of Shengjing Academy charged forward. Meanwhile, one of the elite mobs had been turned into a sheep. but the other elite mob remained the same. What sheep? Adolf looked puzzled. Polymorph, sheep. A voice yelled. At this moment, an arrow shot into the main tank's shoulder. Do we have such a spell? Adolf said in confusion. Didn't you say that you know what is going on? The healing paladin yelled as well. I'm a great mage. The moment he said it, a mob shot an arrow onto the healing paladin's head. While the healing paladin was about to cast a spell, another arrow hit him. Milk. Where's the milk? Turn it into a sheep. How come the mob is still shooting at me? Mage, can you do your job or not? I can. Heal us. We're going to die. Turn it into a sheep. The team was wiped out. Damn it. Adolf's game interface showed that he had been kicked out of the party. After being kicked out several times, Adolf and Dwarf Elder Sock met each other at the entrance. This one, does it need several players to pass? With my skills in magic spells, I'm better than these ordinary people. Let me try it first. 1 hour later, they came back after recovering corpses several times. Forget it. Let's level up first. Looking embarrassed, they went to level up. On the other side is the shop owner. Mr. Fang couldn't spend all his time killing opponents every day in the wilderness. After all, these people were all players and customers of his shops. Therefore, he created a night elf rogue character in the alliance. When he had time, he would earn some coins, open chests, and explore the histories about different places of World of Warcraft left in the relics and libraries to improve the content of the official novels. Meanwhile, Use Highway's bookstore in Juhua City, which sold the official novel of Diablo 2, had become one of the biggest bookstores in the city. Of course, now that Use Highway was working in Origin's internet cafe, she had asked a friend to manage the bookstore for her. Right now, the bookstore had begun selling the new official novel Rise of the Horde. In the new shop, only the e-book was on sale. Physical books hadn't been published yet. Meanwhile, Dungeon Fighter Online had launched its official website and updated the e-book of its official novel. Dead Mines, Wailing Cavern, Stormwind Stockade, Shadow Fang Keep, the players left their footprints in every instance all over the world. Of course, players such as Elder Sock and Adolf were still concentrating on leveling up and doing quests after being rejected by other players. Of course, their progresses were not slow. Some players even concentrated on professions such as engineering, blacksmithing, and herbalism. Lately, the number of people watching Mr. Dirk's spiritual spell visual projection had increased. In fact, some orcs had traveled a long distance to come to the shop, so had the mages who had watched Daikas play World of Warcraft. There were more players in the shop now. The busiest time in the shop was the afternoon, and it got quite boisterous during this period. Since Li Xiner had been moved from the Yuanyang City shop to the new shop, Mr. Fang didn't have to keep an eye on the shop. Ms. Daikas, what raid are you doing today? Ms. Daikas, do you have time to take me in your party? It's said that Ms. Daikas is exploring the new instance Scarlet Monastery. Has she looted any good equipment? I heard, the border of the Orc Kingdom had a situation lately. Some orcs walked through the bustling crows before the gate of the shop. I heard about it. The people of a small town vanished for no reason. I wonder what happened. The king is investigating it. It's a minor incident. I heard that Sala and other young people have looted many blue rare items. I can't fall behind. In the new shop in Kanglan City, Elder Sewell of the elf clan sat together with other elves and entered the game with a cup of milk tea in her hand. Elder, I heard that raiding instances are the most popular. They got great equipment in the instances, an elite of the Elder Guard team said. The most difficult one right now is Scarlet Monastery. Should we try it? 1 hour later, Elder Sewell gave the elves sitting around her a long look. I think I'd better try in another party first. Nanny is needed in Scarlet Monastery. Healing is needed in Scarlet Monastery. 4 members wait for 1 nanny. A real healer. Oh! So, healer is a nanny? This name is so strange. Elder Sewell looked puzzled. But, what do they mean by asking for real healers? Having never raided instances before, Elder Sewell was confused and frustrated. Adolf and Sock were also frustrated. Adolf even felt like his disciple was doing better than him. He didn't like this situation. However, he was too proud to ask his disciple to take him into her party. Let's form a party ourselves, Adolf said. Although he hadn't done raids before, he heard about the mechanisms and setups from his high-level disciple. Therefore, he had a rough idea of what was going on. I call tank. Elder Sock volunteered. Adolf yelled, self-improvement team for Scarlet Monastery. We are looking for a nanny and a DPS. Soon, a rogue joined them. The tank was a warrior of the dwarf clan. Obviously, Elder Sock had enlisted one of his own men. Self-improvement team for Scarlet Monastery. 4 members wait for one. We need a nanny. How come they are all calling for nannies? Elder Sewell glanced at her rejuvenation and said, I can heal too, should I? Sewell requests to join the party. Druid. Adolf and Elder Sock exchanged a look. But looking at the name, an acquaintance? They added her first. Elder Sewell, we're old friends, but we need a healer. We can't do it without a nanny, the rogue on the side agreed. We don't even have to try. I can heal. Elder Sewell casually cast rejuvenation. Different from holy light, this was a life presence as if the spring returned to the land. After she cast the spell, the target of the spell, Adolf, immediately felt an intense life presence. Adolf nodded and said, this is indeed a healing spell. Now that we've got everyone, let's enter together. Okay. Okay. Elder Sewell was excited that she finally found a team leader. How come her milk is green? At this moment, the rogue glanced at his poisoned dagger and saw that it was also green. Different from the Dead Mines, which solely belonged to the Alliance, and the Wailing Cavern, which solely belonged to the Horde, Scarlet Monastery was accessible to both Alliance and Horde players under the instruction of their quests. Of course, since it was closer to Undercity of the Horde, it was friendlier to Horde players. The Scarlet Crusade had fought the Scourge Legion on the front lines. Many paladins and priests, who fought in the name of the Holy Light and Justice, and countless excellent warriors had joined the Scarlet Crusade with glory, loyalty, and pride in their hearts. They had the lofty dream of eliminating all the undead creatures on Azeroth. However, they had now almost been driven to crazy by their hunger for revenge. They thought that all the people not wearing Crusade uniforms had contracted the undead plague, and they mercilessly tortured the innocent people, who they suspected to have contracted this plague. This was a super large building consisting of 4 instance zones. The monastery had once been the pride of the kingdom of Lord Aaron and the holy place for pilgrims. However, after the war, it became an important stronghold for the fanatic Scarlet Crusaders who were the fiercest enemies of the undead race. This was a castle-like grand building full of Scarlet Crusaders. The portals of the 4 instance zones were located in the graveyard, library, armory, and cathedral respectively. The magic portals leading to the 4 instances were called Gate 1, 2, 3, and 4 by the players in accordance to their positions. The difficulty level increased in the order of Gate 1, 4, 3, and 2. Most players wouldn't waste their time on Instance Zone number 1 due to its low difficulty level and poor quality of item drops. After all, the players who had diligently explored and raided previous instances had obtained many good pieces of equipment. Dikaz's party naturally wouldn't enter this instance zone. After watching Dikaz's raid for a while, Mage Adolf led his party directly toward instance number 4. Follow me. Don't waste time on the Horde players. Enter it directly. Adolf obviously knew the situation. His party had 1 mage, 1 hunter, 1 warrior, 1 druid, and 1 rogue. After we enter, we need to first clear the Scarlet Crusaders along the corridor. While running forward, Adolf tossed orders to his team, sounding like an old-timer with a lot of experience. "Leader, are you experienced?" the rogue asked cautiously. It was quite difficult to find a player who could pass the Scarlet Monastery at this point in the game. Of course. Adolf was very confident in himself. As a Grand Level 9 mage, he had watched the process and was sure that this instance wouldn't be difficult for him. "Follow my orders, and I'll help you pass at least 2 instances." "Okay. Okay. Okay. I'll follow your orders all the way." Thinking that he had found a great player, the rogue said in exhilaration. "They are frozen by Frost Nova. Do damage now. Heal the tank. Missed some. Hunter, unleash the bears and stop them." The first part of the raid went on smoothly. Although some members hadn't done instances before, they were masters in the real world and could easily deal with the mobs. After the corridor, they came into a big garden-like courtyard. The group walked across the courtyard cautiously, trying not to alert more Scarlet Crusaders as they cleared the ones in the courtyard. Discovering the invaders, herds of Scarlet Crusaders swarmed out and attacked them in the narrow corridor. The dwarf warrior and elder Sox Bear managed to block the bulk of these fearless zealots with the advantage of the terrain. The Scarlet Crusaders who managed to bypass the 2 iron walls and lunged at the players at the back were frozen by Adolf's Frost Nova and then instantly and easily killed by the rogue using his dagger with shining chilly lights reflecting off it. Even though a few mobs managed to charge to the back, they were not enough to pose any great danger. "How come I feel like my HP is not right?" The dwarf main tank who stood before the herds of mobs obviously couldn't block and hold off all the attacks. Although the green lights of rejuvenation kept flashing, his HP got even lower while more wounds appeared on his body. "Ah!" With a scream, the dwarf warrior fell to the ground. "How come the tank is down?" "I'm healing," Elder Sewell was puzzled too. Meanwhile, the mobs rushed toward the back line. "I just cast Frost Nova." Adolf roared immediately, "Let the bear take more of them. We will eliminate these mobs together. Hurry! Hurry! Healing! Heal us!" They still felt like their HPs were dropping quickly. "Heal me!" Covered in blood, Elder Sock battled and roared from the center of a large group of Scarlet Crusaders. A green light bloomed and shined over his head. The wounds on his body healed at snail speed. "Milk! Give me milk!" On the other side, the rogue had used all his skills while there were still several Scarlet Crusaders surrounded him. About to wave her wand, Elder Sewell heard another roar. A blood-covered mage jumped out from the siege of Scarlet Crusaders while yelling hoarsely, "Milk! Give me milk! Give me milk!" His face covered in blood, Elder Sock yelled wildly. "Me! Give me milk! I'm dying!" The rogue player reached out a hand from the herd of mobs and yelled with tears on his face. "Give me milk!" Ah! A big herd of mobs were in hot pursuit of Adolf. Turning her eyes from Elder Sock to the rogue to Adolf and then back to Elder Sock, Elder Sewell felt dizzy while listening to these loud yells. "How can I give you guys milk in such a situation?" Her beautiful bright eyes started to turn around. "Milk! Milk! Milk! How can I give milk to you guys at the same time? Do I look like I have 10 breasts?" 3 minutes later, the 5 of them all had grey screens. What's going on? They had watched Dikas do this with ease. How come we had been wiped out? We haven't even seen the boss yet. Since there were no druids in the real world, and few players chose this class in the game, these players had the feeling that there was something wrong with this milk. In the graveyard, 5 transparent souls appeared. How come the milk was not effective? The dwarf warrior said loudly, "My HP got lower with this milk." "Leader," the rogue glanced at his poisoned dagger and remembered the green spell, and he voiced his doubt hesitantly, "I suspect, the milk, is poisonous." "What?" Remembering rejuvenation which looked as green as a poisonous liquid, dwarf Elder Sock, who had been beaten so hard the mobs that his mouth was filled with blood, held his wounds and glared at Elder Sewell. You put poison in the milk.